Stick with me. You're about to witness a man's quest to find his wife turn into the most brutal revenge story you've ever seen. The killer wasn't some random thug. It was her own father, the Grandmaster who ruled the martial world with an iron fist. When the news hit him, his rage practically leveled the Northern Sea Divine Palace. He was beyond furious. How could any father be such a monster? He butchered his own flesh and blood just for sect pride and power. That day, he unsheathed his blade and gave his army one single, chilling command. Follow me. We march on the Central Plains. His rage swept across the land like wildfire, dragging the entire martial world into a total doomsday. The invincible Grandmaster was spent. Now he knelt in the snow like a beaten stray, just waiting for the end. Through the howling blizzard, the man stepped forward slowly, blood dripping from his blade. Why did you kill her? He stared down at the broken old man. She was your own daughter. How could you do this? Even facing death, the old man stayed arrogant. My daughter choosing a nobody like you? That was her real crime. My biggest mistake was not snapping her neck the moment she was born. A twisted grin crossed his face. So what, Mu? You conquered the world and became Lord of the Northern Sea. Now watch this. The woman you loved is gone forever. Wind howled as Mu stared him down in cold, deadly silence. His eyes turned to ice. Suddenly, a massive surge of energy pierced straight through the Grandmaster's chest. Game over. Mu never found out if that hypocrite felt even a single shred of regret before he died. But the old man was right about one thing. What good is ruling the world now? Yan was never coming back. From that day on, the feared Lord of the Northern Sea vanished from the world, leaving behind a lonely man clutching a withered flower. In his memories, when the lotus of love bloomed, Yan's smile was brighter than the sun itself. Legends say this miracle flower only blooms when two souls are perfectly bound by true, deep love. Tears shimmered in her eyes that day as she told him, I never doubted you. But when it wouldn't bloom for so long, I was honestly scared. But seeing it bloom like this, now I know our love was never just wishful thinking. Mu, your heart is full of me, too. He pulled her close and whispered, who else could I ever love? Seeing her so happy, he silently thanked that miracle flower from the bottom of his heart. They filled the garden with lotuses of love. But after Yan was gone, every flower in the garden lost its soul and withered. Okay, I know what you're thinking. But check this out. Standing in the garden, Mu saw something impossible. The withered lotus had bloomed again among the ruins. A miracle like this had to mean something. He immediately called for his trusted subordinate, Wuxia. Bring me every great scholar in the world. I don't care about the cost. I just want to know what this means. Days later, dozens of top scholars from across the globe were gathered inside the Northern Sea Divine Palace. Dragooned into the palace, they were terrified. Then, Mu's voice echoed through the massive hall. Get to the rear garden now. The scholars traded nervous looks and hurried off with pounding hearts. The moment they entered the garden, every single one of them froze and gasped in shock. The garden was overflowing with the legendary lotus of love. A flower thought to be extinct was now in full bloom. An old scholar stumbled forward, trembling. This is a divine flower people search their whole lives to find. And yet, here is an entire garden of them. Look at these natural patterns on the stems. These are real lotuses of love. Without a sound, Mu had already appeared right behind them. He spoke calmly. I am the master here. So, are these flowers to your satisfaction? Everyone turned around, and seeing him, they stumbled back in pure terror. The ruler of the Central Plains was standing right before them. He ignored their fear and sat down. Once, the love between my wife and me made these flowers bloom. When she died, the flowers withered too. But just a few days ago, they all suddenly came back to life. The scholars weren't just shocked anymore. They were completely confused. After a long debate and searching ancient records, the old scholar reached a conclusion, so chilling, it made everyone shudder. And that's where we leave it. Mu grabbed him. Speak! What does it mean? You won't believe what happens next. According to the ancient scrolls, when the flower of love blooms again, only one truth remains. Its owner, your wife, has not actually vanished. She has been reborn somewhere in another world. You and I are about to see Mu's world stop. Could this miracle actually be true? If it was not true, then how could the flower of love bloom once more? A surge of raw, wild joy rushed into his heart, as if he had finally grabbed a sliver of light within the endless darkness. Since uniting the Central Plains and fulfilling the long-held wish of the Divine Palace's ancestors, all that remained for Mu was a hollow, death-like emptiness. Decades of time had done nothing to weaken his longing. Instead, that love was carved deep into his very soul. Taking a breath, he asked the only question that mattered. Tell me, how can I find her? The old man opened the ancient book and said, It is written that when two soulmate spirits exist together on the same continent, the lotus of love they raise together will resonate and start to glow. Remembering that the lotus of love really had glowed faintly before, Mu finally understood everything. So that was the secret hidden deep inside. For easier travel, the old scholar suggested that Mu have a master craftsman seal the very first lotus of love into a pendant to wear. After hearing this, Mu turned and gave orders to Weem. You handle the rest. I leave in 10 days. Before then, ensure every scholar who helped us returns home safely. Give them each 100 gold coins. They have more than earned that wealth. The sunset burned like blood across the sky. Mu gripped his pendant and looked toward the heavens. Yan, no matter how many worlds lay between them, he would find her and bring her home. 1 year later, a massive wooden ship was struggling through a violet stretch of sea. In the dim cabin, Mu studied a map that was already covered in marks. He had scoured every corner of the continent, yet there was still no clue. He set down the feather pen and realized this was already the 3rd year since he began his journey. As he rubbed the pendant, his mind began to drift back to the past. Back then, it was her father's fake peace offer that had pushed Yan into the abyss. To try and ease the tension between Mu and her father, Yan had pushed aside all objections and decided to attend those peace talks herself. She was just too kind, naively believing that even a vicious tiger would not eat its own cubs, and that her father would never harm her. Mu had failed to stop her, and that became the most unforgivable sin of his life. Before leaving, Yan placed the necklace left behind by her mother around his neck, telling him that an ancient vow was hidden inside that jewelry. If he ever accidentally lost her, the light from that necklace would guide him across mountains and seas back to her side. She smiled so sweetly back then, promising they would never be apart. Mu closed his eyes in agony. He should have broken her legs to keep her safe. Suddenly, the ship lurched with violent force. Stick with me, because a once-in-a-century storm is about to tear the world apart. Mu pushed open the heavy cabin door and walked straight onto the deck. Dense raindrops fell like icy blades, while terrifying waves crashed madly toward the ship. This storm was beyond all reason, as if nature itself were venting its absolute fury upon the world. Under the impact of those massive waves, the sturdy ship was on the verge of collapse, as the wooden planks groaned in despair. Several passengers lost their grip and were swallowed instantly by the black depths of the sea. Mu's eyes turned sharp. Using his inner energy, he began to control the broken planks from a distance. The planks moved as if they were alive, flying precisely to the side of every single person who had fallen overboard. It gave them a slim chance to survive the raging storm, but at that very moment, a monstrous wave as vast as a mountain range came crashing down. Looking at the horrifying tsunami about to crush the ship, everyone felt the end was near. Even the veteran sailors fell into despair. Mu only frowned slightly. You and I are about to see exactly why Mu was the ruler of the Central Plains. He formed seals with both hands as the icy true energy inside him surged wildly, preparing to freeze the tsunami and the entire sea. In an instant, the sailors watched in terror as frost began forming in the violent air, and the temperature dropped at an impossible speed. At the very instant his power was about to burst forth, the lotus of love pendant on his chest suddenly erupted with a blinding light. In the middle of the pitch-black storm, a massive vortex of light tore open the sky. That vortex carried a terrifying pull so powerful that even the tsunami below was ripped apart and dragged right into it. And just like that, you and I watch as Mu is pulled into a brand new world. Alright, you and I are about to see one of the craziest world-jumping stories ever, starting with this light. The storm that looked like it would end the world just vanished into thin air. The sea went dead, silent. Survivors on deck just collapsed, staring at each other in total shock. A miracle? Maybe. But nobody noticed the man at the bow had completely vanished into the void. When the reality-warping chaos finally settled, Mu opened his eyes in a massive, ancient primeval forest. Right nearby, a group was being torn apart by giant flies. Mu just frowned to him. They were just oversized pests. Looking at these blonde, blue-eyed knights in medieval gear, he knew one thing for sure. This definitely wasn't the Central Plains anymore. He was in a total unknown, but the danger right in front of him did not need any explanation. Now pay attention, because we are about to see what happens when a master meets these monsters. Without even drawing his sword, he casually raises his hand to unleash a frost palm. A wave of freezing energy burst forth, instantly turning every giant fly in midair into an ice statue. In the next second, he suddenly clenched all 5 fingers. The frozen statues shattered, exploding into a storm of ice crystals that bloomed across the sky like dazzling fireworks. The survivors stood there, completely paralyzed, as if a god had just descended from the heavens right before them. An old man in fancy robes stumbled forward, waving his arms wildly. Mu just gave him a cold stare. The language barrier was a real problem. For a wanderer, not being understood usually means unnecessary violence and conflict. But then, the old man pulled a ring with a strange, glowing gemstone out of his robes. Then, to activate the thing, he started doing this incredibly ridiculous, over-the-top dance right there in the grass. Mu's eye actually twitched. Was this some kind of weird Western ritual he had never seen before? The crazy part? When the old man spoke again, the foreign gibberish automatically turned into words Mu could understand. The activation method was embarrassing, but Mu had to admit the tech was actually pretty useful. Praise the gods. Thank you for saving the Roar Merchant Guild, honored magic swordsman. The man's name was Edmund, the guild president. Mu raised an eyebrow. Magic swordsman? What kind of title was that? Edmund explained that on this continent, anyone who could use a blade and frost magic like that was a hero. You and I both know the truth here. They are mistaking his frost true energy for some kind of Western magic. No chanting, no magic circles. No wonder these people were looking at him like he was a miracle. Edmund rubbed his hands together, his eyes sparkling with a merchant's natural greed and curiosity. My lord, with power that terrifying, you cannot be a nobody. Tell me, which kingdom do you call home? Mu went silent. The former lord of the Northern Sea had already died back in that snowy storm of revenge. Now, he was just a wanderer, crossing between worlds in search of Yan. Looking at the merchant, he said coldly, I come from somewhere very far away. Then his eyes flashed. Just call me Mu. Seeing that man's unquestionable icy expression, Edmund shrank back in fear, quickly swallowed every remaining question in his throat, and wisely shut his mouth. As the sun set and the campfire started crackling, Mu's mind finally began to settle down. He learned they were in a forest heading toward Balkan, the capital city of the Drake Kingdom. To show his thanks, Edmund handed him a matching translation ring and showed him the ropes. Once he put the ring on, even Mu was secretly impressed. The magical items in this world were top tier. He could understand every conversation in camp perfectly now, but just as he started to relax, he felt a violent surge of energy erupting from his chest. The spiritual energy density here was on a whole different level compared to the Central Plains. It was like a dried-up riverbed suddenly getting hit by a rushing current. Mu felt a wave of caution. He needed to test exactly how his inner force would react to this strange, new world. Under the cover of night, he drifted above the forest like a ghost vanishing into the shadows. He gathered his true energy into his palm. When he finally let it rip, the result left him speechless. His power actually doubled. Trust me, you and I are about to watch this world get turned upside down. Stick with me, because power that usually takes years to build was growing here as naturally as breathing. This massive boost in strength from crossing dimensions gave him the confidence he needed to survive here. But he was still puzzled. Had the necklace's journey through space somehow reshaped his very meridians? Jan once told him this necklace had the absolute power to return to whoever originally gave it away. After fusing it with the Lotus of Love, he realized if the necklace brought him here, then Jan must be nearby. Facing this completely alien fantasy continent, Mu knew he needed to gather as much information as possible. He decided to travel with a merchant caravan heading straight for Balkan, the massive human capital. As for all the curious looks he was getting from the people in the caravan, he calmly claimed he'd lived in seclusion and only recently decided to finally see the world. A young boy named Luffy kept circling him, his eyes shining with total admiration for Mu's strength. Despite his age, the kid was a living encyclopedia, filling in all the blanks about this world. The world map was vast and strangely shaped, unlike any world he knew before. Its writing and entire civilization had zero in common with the world of the Central Plains. He was fascinated to find humans sharing this land with elegant elves and master blacksmith dwarves. Savage beastmen roamed the lands, but dragons ruled the very top of the food chain. To Mu, dragons were just giant winged lizards, but the spatial teleportation magic circles in this world? Now that actually shocked him. As long as a mage reached the 5th circle, things got dangerous for everyone around them. They could travel thousands of miles instantly, completely putting his old world's movement skills to shame with their speed. What a bizarre and insane world. Mu looked up at the night sky and just sighed. High above, 3 different colored moons hung in the sky, proving he was not home anymore. Seeing that sight, Mu had to accept reality. He had truly crossed into another plane of existence. Holding the pendant to his chest, he whispered, Jan, is this really the path you chose for me? A desperate argument suddenly broke out on the other side of the caravan. Watch closely, because Savina was about to do something unthinkable. She pressed a dagger against the throat of her own younger sister, Annie, her face filled with pure despair. Despair filled her face as guards nearby desperately tried to persuade her to put the knife down before it was too late. They promised her that the bishops and mages in the capital could definitely cure whatever was wrong. Savina screamed that they were lying. The assassin bug eggs had already hatched inside their hearts. Once the larvae eat their hearts hollow, they will turn into mindless monsters controlled by the insects, and no one can remove a curse this disgusting. She would rather die with dignity right now than transform into a humiliated, bloodthirsty beast later on. Just as the blade was about to cut her skin, Mu appeared like a ghost and caught her wrist. I think I already have a rough understanding of your condition. His voice was calm but carried a startling force. He told them he could remove the curse. Now put away your toy. You and I both see Savina staring at him, her voice trembling in shock. You can really save us? Edmund rushed over, looking just as shocked as the rest of them. Edmund asked if he knew divine healing, but Mew completely ignored the man's excited, shouting as he focused on the task. I don't know, divine art's just a special technique. Now, everyone needs to step back right now. He looked at the terrified sisters collapsed on the ground and let his tone soften by the slightest degree. Don't be nervous. Just close your eyes and breathe. This will all be over in an instant. The sisters were terrified, but the overwhelming pressure of an absolute powerhouse from Mew made them obey him on instinct. Mew placed his hands on their backs as his thick, true energy split into countless threads, moving with incredible precision through their meridians. Under the probing force of his inner power, the terrifying truth of their condition finally emerged. He saw the disgusting eggs hidden in their heart valves, requiring absolute, terrifyingly precise control to remove them safely without injury. He had to use extreme heat from his inner force to carbonize those eggs in an instant. His gaze sharpened as energy gathered around their hearts. Then his inner force burst forth in an instant. They coughed up black blood, and trust me, you and I can finally breathe again too. Let's dive in. The purple hue on their faces fades as health returns. Mew stands up, casually dusting off his hands. All right, those parasitic eggs are completely gone now, and we see zero side effects. These two are no longer knocking on death's door. A few days later, on the dusty road to the capital Balkan, a merchant caravan pushes forward under a relentless, blazing sun. Everyone on this journey is complaining about the cursed heat roasting them alive. Young Luffy runs over to Mew and hands him a small water flask. It's way too hot, Mr. Mew. Please, have some water. Mew takes the bottle and feels the warmth. In this brutal heat, drinking warm water felt like literal torture. His finger pauses as a strand of frost energy flows into the bottle. In a heartbeat, the warm water turns into ice-cold liquid, venting a thick, frosty mist. Mew takes a refreshing sip. He hands the flask back to Luffy and tells him to try some too. The second Luffy takes the bottle, he is stunned by the extreme chill against his palm. He takes a massive gulp. It is freezing and crystal clear, as if the heat of the entire world had been swept away in a single instant. The boy's eyes light up like he just found a pile of gold. He leans in close. Mr. Mew, can you make my water like this too? Looking at Luffy's hopeful eyes, Mew remembers that the kid really has helped him a lot lately, so he casually grants the small request. His inner force moves again, creating another perfect flask of ice water. Luffy runs off, grinning like an idiot. But watch this, the good times are about to hit a major snag. Word spreads fast that there is a mage in the group who can create premium ice water out of nothing. Looking at the long line of people staring with eager eyes, Mew lets out a heavy sigh. What gives Mew the biggest headache is that even Edmund, the guild president, comes over like a shark smelling blood. After one sip, he lets out an exaggerated cry of pure admiration. Great gods above, I've traveled this whole continent and tasted everything, but I have never experienced water this pure and cool. Mew thinks the old man is overreacting. He only lowered the temperature with his true energy. It's still the same water, so how different could it taste? But Edmund explains, My lord, you just don't understand. Most mages draw frost magic from the air itself to create their ice. That magic contains elemental impurities, leaving the ice with a bitter taste that is hard for anyone to swallow. But yours is different. It's so pure, it's like holy water taken from the peak of a snow mountain. That is why the flavor is so unbelievable. Edmund's merchant brain spins wildly, and an incredible business plan takes shape in an instant. So, the mighty peerless expert Mew, the Lord of the Northern Sea, you and I both knew he was a cold killer, but now he has become the caravan's chief ice maker. Edmund becomes the exclusive agent. They even reach a profit-sharing deal of 60-40, with Mew taking the larger 60% cut. Business becomes outrageously popular during this heat wave. It is absolutely booming. Even the Magi Merchant Guild, one of the top 10 on the continent, wants to buy in. What pleases Mew even more is the mercenary Savina. To repay him for saving her, she uses his ice to create an amazing new dessert. She mixes the pure ice with milk to create something called ice cream. It is a sweet, rich delicacy he has never tasted before. That cold, creamy flavor is a stunning revelation Mew had never experienced back in the Central Plains. After one serving, that dense sweetness leaves everyone wanting much more. Mew smacks his lips and goes to ask Savina for another round. But at the tent entrance, he sees a total mess. Young nobles in luxury uniforms are rudely driving away all the nearby customers. They arrogantly demand that Savina stop serving everyone else and only focus on them. These pampered aristocrats are clearly used to throwing their weight around. At the slightest hint of annoyance, they draw their swords and threaten the common merchant standing all around them. The noble leading them is especially eye-catching. A strange glow swirls in his eyes. He is using low-level mental magic to keep the commoners around him too afraid to resist. Seeing the situation spiral out of control, Edmund rushes out, sweating, to try and smooth things over. But Edmund's humble peace offering only makes things worse. Stick with me to see what happens next. A lowly merchant like you dares to stand in my way? This is an insult to my noble dignity. All right, You and I are about to see this arrogant noble get the reality check of a lifetime. In the very next second, he swings his magic-infused sword without hesitation, slashing viciously toward Edmund's neck. Faced with that fatal strike, the elderly Edmund freezes in terror. But at the critical moment, everything stops. A long, slender hand reaches out from nowhere, catching the incoming blade between two fingers like a pair of iron tongs. Mew's eyes are cold as ice as his wrist exerts a slight, effortless force. A fierce shock surges along the blade, sending the young noble staggering backward. Seeing this, the arrogant brat's face twists into pure, shame-filled rage. "You ignorant commoner," he roars, madly pouring every ounce of magic inside his body into his sword. The blade bursts with a blinding glow as magic boosts his movements to their absolute limit. The boy's blade becomes an unbelievably fast web of flashing steel. But no matter how wildly he swings, he can't even touch Mew's robe. Watch closely, the speed difference is insane. It is as if he were fighting nothing but a lingering illusion that does not truly exist. After the young noble once again slashes through another afterimage while panting for breath, he reaches his limit. Mew finally grows bored of this mindless flailing that lacks any real skill. "I am curious," he says, his voice cold and loud enough for everyone present to hear clearly. "Who exactly was it that gave you this much inflated confidence? Your swordsmanship doesn't match that arrogant mouth of yours." Before he even finishes speaking, Mew casually raises his hand and flicks a single finger. A concentrated strand of frost-infused energy shoots out like a bullet. That silent wave of true energy instantly transforms into a fatal streak of light, mercilessly piercing straight through the young noble's right wrist bone. The boy lets out a miserable scream from the overwhelming pain as the enchanted sword slips from his grip and crashes loudly to the ground. The boy clutches his bloody wrist with all his strength, his face pale from the shock. Yet the arrogance bred into him by a lifetime of privilege still prevents him from bowing his head. Instead, his face twists with venomous hatred. Looking at this fool, Mew keeps both hands in his pockets and slowly walks toward him. The boy endures the searing pain, struggling back to his feet to glare at his opponent viciously. Mew looks down at him from above, the corner of his mouth curling into a mocking, cold smile. "You could have stayed on the ground and played dead. Why insist on standing back up to embarrass yourself? Do you really enjoy playing these noble games that much? Then let me see exactly how many hits your so-called noble bloodline can actually take. You and I both know where this is going." Mew is done playing nice and decides to give this spoiled brat a lesson he'll never forget. "Your bones do seem pretty hard, I'll give you that." Mew casually pulls a thick, solid wooden club from the cargo wagon. A terrifying pressure in his eyes makes the boy's blood run cold. "I just don't know whether your bones are harder than the stick in my hand." A terrifying, murderous chill flashes through Mew's eyes. Deep down, he asks himself if he should just end this ungrateful piece of trash right here and now. But perhaps it was Jan's gentle kindness, still lingering in his heart, that kept him from pulling the trigger. So in the end, he restrains his killing intent and decides to give these noble brats one final chance. Still, for spoiled aristocrats raised in greenhouses, a proper round of physical resistance training is clearly unavoidable. "Then let's run a little experiment," Mew says, lightly weighing the heavy wooden club in his hand. His voice is low and dangerous. "Let us see whose bones are stronger, your expensive ones, or this rotten commoner's stick." As Mew steps closer, one slow pace at a time, the atmosphere becomes heavy enough to crush. The stubbornness in the boy's eyes finally shatters under the pressure, turning into the most primal kind of fear. Mew knows that for self-righteous scum like this, verbal lessons are never as effective as a beating that is carved directly into the soul. The storm of force crashes down. By nightfall, the boy's eyes are finally humble. "I am sorry, we were wrong. Please stop, we will never do this again." Mew tosses away the broken wooden club and turns around coldly, leaving the bruised noble behind. "And trust me, you and I just witnessed a perfect example of how the mind is tempered through the flesh." Meanwhile, deep inside the Drake Kingdom's palace, a secret meeting that will decide the nation's fate unfolds in tense silence. Duke Caton wears a grave expression as he taps the intelligence report resting in his hand. The Kingdom of Celia has already reclaimed the Black Wasteland, while the powerful Kingdom of Hassan is greedily expanding toward the forbidden lands beyond the Sahara Desert. Duke Caton frowns. Beyond that desert, there is nothing but terrifying magical beasts. You and I are watching a kingdom on the brink. Why did Hassan challenge a forbidden zone? They suspect the long-lost Enos has already been brought under their banner. Hearing that name made the king's hand shake. For a second, pure, unfiltered fear flashed through his eyes. Dead silence gripped the chamber as the council members felt cold sweat soaking through their clothes. Enos was one of the 10 legendary sword saints, a total monster at the peak of martial power. He used to be a lone wanderer who ignored the rules. But the latest rumors? They were absolutely devastating. He had apparently gotten way too close to the sister of the leader of Hassan. Now, pay attention, this bond is deadlier than money. It means Hassan has 2 sword saints ready to sweep aside any rival. With the power balance completely broken, Expanding territory and building defenses was the only way out. The leaders could already smell the smoke of war. Everything was hanging by a thread. Duke Caden argued they needed to expand just to survive. Right now, the only land left untouched was the Lhasa Range. That frozen mountain chain in the far north is a death trap. Caden added that unless they sent a legendary lord to suppress the frost and the foreign tribes, this entire plan was useless talk. In the end, the tense meeting ended in silence, as everyone shifted the blame. Later, the king sat alone on his throne, his heart filled with a deep sense of loneliness. Duke wasn't just ambitious, he was cold and ruthless. For 10 years, he used the north as an excuse to send every rival he had to die in the Lhasa Range. The king felt trapped. Aside from Caden, he knew the entire palace was crawling with the duke's spies. Late that night, the king remembered a legendary new dessert called ice cream that had been taking the city by storm lately. You and I know he just needed a distraction. Caden got the message immediately and promised to personally handle the arrangements. Meanwhile, at the camp, Savina arrived with a group of kids whose eyes were shining with hope. To Mu's total surprise, they were begging him to teach them magic. Mu looked at the little troublemakers and sighed. He told them flatly that he didn't actually know any magic. He explained he used an Eastern martial art called Frost Palm. But the kids? They didn't care about the labels. Fine, they said. We don't want magic, we want to learn Frost Palm. Mu groaned, cursing that these pushy kids were somehow even harder to deal with than the elite assassins he faced back in the Central Plains. But seeing their pure desire to get strong and protect their families, it actually touched his cold heart just a little. Finding Yan was his main goal. He knew he shouldn't be wasting his time and energy here. Plus, the secrets of the Northern Sea divine art were never supposed to be shared with outsiders. He was torn between his tradition and the current reality. Come back tomorrow at this time, and I will give you my final answer. Mu waved them away, but the kids could already tell there was a chance. You're actually going to teach us. We'll never forget this kindness. Mu was left completely speechless. He hadn't even formally agreed yet, but those children were already running off in pure joy, slamming the door shut as they left him behind. For the first time in forever, Mu felt a flicker of human warmth. He opened the window to let the cold air clear his head. He wondered at that age, who doesn't dream of having enough power to command life and death and shake the heavens? Suddenly, from deep within the dark forest nearby, the faint sound of clashing blades echoed out. Right then, the king and Caden were in some serious trouble. They just wanted some ice cream in disguise. But they walked straight into a professional and brutal ambush. To make matters worse, a top-tier fire mage was waiting among the attackers. The mage smirked, flicking his fingers to send 3 massive fireballs screaming toward Caden like falling meteors. Caden let out a furious roar and swung his sword to unleash his battle aura, but the crushing heat still forced him backwards step by step. The fireballs detonated, and a blinding red light instantly swallowed up all the surrounding trees. The king watched from behind, terrified as his final line of defense looked like it was about to collapse. The smoke clears, and Caden reappears. Our journey is just starting. Stick with me. As blood drips from Keaton's scorched armor during this absolute disaster of a battle, the situation is becoming absolutely critical. Masked assassins swarm like a dark tide, forcing Keaton and his guards to stand back to back and fight to the death. The leader signals the end with a cold wave of his hand. The full assault begins. They claim the throne changes hands tonight, but the royal guards are elite and ready to fight until the end. Despite the agony, Keaton spins and takes the head of a killer who got way too close. But the assassins keep coming, and 2 more use shadow step magic to circle around and flank him. Keaton swings his blade like a maniac, but his internal battle aura has already hit its limit. Meanwhile, the fire mage raises his staff, chanting a high-level spell meant to end it all right here. Keaton can only watch in despair as a massive sphere of destruction gathers at the tip of that staff. Watch closely, you and I are about to see a miracle fall from the sky. The mage has 0 time to scream before a solid beam of frost pierces his chest. He is frozen solid as a black figure blurs from the woods, moving faster than the human eye can track. I am not too late. Your ice cream has not even melted yet. Mu's voice is cold and mocking, leaving the leader wondering how this man got so close. Before anyone can react, Mu has already appeared behind him like a teleporting phantom. He drops a thug with a backhand strike, apologizing for letting these guys interrupt his dinner time. He plans to take out the trash before his ice cream melts completely. The leader is panicking deep inside, but greed takes over, and he orders his men to kill the brat, assuming it was a sneak attack. He demands the king's head at all costs, swinging his own blade to pin down this terrifying intruder. A flicker of pure excitement flashes in Mu's eyes. True energy hardens into a sword of ice as he praises the man for being a decent fighter. He prepares to greet the leader with his Northern Sea's swift soul blade. Mu feels the familiar vibration of the soul blade in his hand. You and I know this feeling, the kind of battle that makes your blood roar. The icy blade carves a perfect arc, stopping the leader's full-force downward strike with ease. The leader is furious, pouring all his power into both arms to try and crush Mu. But Mu dodges with pure contempt, moving with an elegance that looks almost like a waltz. This leader is no amateur. He spins his blade and instantly shifts into a twin blade stance. He lunges forward like a starving panther. Both blades glow with freezing light as they hack down, but Mu simply flicks his sword upward. It looks effortless, yet that strike carries the force of 1,000 pounds and shatters the offense. Mu's wrist gives a faint twist as he whispers, "Second sword." Sword shadows flash like lightning, and by the third strike, the assassin leader is frozen in place. Fine lines of blood suddenly burst from his entire body. He collapses as a light rain begins to fall, washing away the smell of blood in the forest. The king and Keaton can only stare at the scene in absolute disbelief. The remaining assassins are trembling, their confidence completely shattered by what they just witnessed. They wonder in terror if this kid is actually the legendary hidden sword saint. But Mu is not celebrating. Instead, he looks incredibly annoyed. He blames the useless trash for ruining his ice cream, staring at the paper box as it softens in the rain. The assassins are confused until the very end, having no idea what ice cream even is. Survival instinct drives their last desperate move. Trust me, you and I are about to watch him escape as 6 killers launch a massive attack with layered sword shadows from every possible angle. As the weapons strike, you and I are about to see something wild. A pale blue shield of energy suddenly explodes outward from Mu's body. 6 swords slam into the blue shield with a shrill grind, but they can't budge it an inch. Mu slowly lifts the fading image of Sua in his hand. With a savage surge of inner power, a massive spiral of frost sweeps out in every direction. That absolute freezing force transforms into sword energy that nothing can stop. One wide sweep and all 6 assassins drop dead at the exact same time. Mu sheathes his blade calmly, as if he were just swatting away some annoying flies. The king and Keaton are still collapsed on the ground, their shock turning into pure awe. Before they can even say thank you, Mu turns into a streak of blue light and vanishes into the dark forest. Back at camp, Mu finds himself facing Princess Ashi. The tension is awkward, like a rookie soldier who just messed up. Anger is written all over her face. "Magic swordsman, how many times is this? Why do you keep rejecting my father's sincere invitations over and over?" Mu stares at Ashi in silence. In this world, she's a dead ringer for Yan, right down to her angry pout. And the moment she steps closer, watch this, Mu's love lotus pendant suddenly starts glowing without warning. "I have finally found you," he roars deep inside his heart. Suddenly, every second of waiting is worth it. Mu sets down his teacup and steadies his nerves. "Fine, I accept. When do we leave?" Ashi freezes, her whole persuasion speech now completely useless. Mu agreed so easily that she honestly doesn't know what to do next. That intense look in Mu's eyes makes her heart race in panic, so she looks away. "Since it is your invitation, I will be there. Tell me where." Ashi hides her shyness and gives him an answer. "Tomorrow at 11 in the morning, I'll be waiting at the gates of Balkan Palace." Ashi stands up, gives a quick bow, and rushes out of the room. Watching her go, Mu's heart, usually as calm as a still pond, starts feeling incredibly restless. She's a noble princess, while he's just a wandering swordsman with a completely mystery background. Even worse, she doesn't seem to remember a single thing from her past life. How can he navigate these new rules and make her his bride all over again? Mu's eyes sharpen with resolve. He's used to solving things with a sword, but he might need Edmund's clever advice for this. You and I both know this is a long shot, and Edmund's reaction says it all. "My lord, you've gone crazy, or maybe a curse has stolen your common sense." Edmund whispers urgently. Princess Ashi is the last surviving bloodline of the late Swan Queen. She's the only true heir to the entire kingdom. You might be insanely strong, but in this kingdom, you have 0 rank or merit. Forget marriage. Even just touching her hand in public would be seen as absolute blasphemy against royal authority. Any man chasing the princess needs to be a foreign prince or at least a high-ranking noble who controls half a province. After hearing that harsh reality check, Mu doesn't lose his temper. Instead, he starts thinking, if I earn enough merit and status to silence every noble in the land, will I have the right to chase her? Mu definitely isn't turning back now. But Edmund grabs him again, looking absolutely panicked. "Sir, the palace isn't just some market. The rules in there are enough to drive any man crazy." So, Edmund drags Mu straight into the caravan's secret mobile library. "Before meeting the king, you have to master all those fake court manners. Tonight, I'm training you myself." Mu looks helplessly at the excited old merchant and lets out a heavy sigh. The cost of love is high. This night feels even longer to Mu than fighting thousands of enemy soldiers on the battlefield. The next day, Mu changes into the formal outfit Edmund picked out for him. He looks sharp and elegant in the mirror. He just hopes this civilized look will impress Ashi. Inside the hall, the king shows total respect to Mu, the man who saved his life. But Mu is caught off guard. Instead of a private meeting, the room is packed with officials and soldiers. From the throne, Ashi looks apologetic. "Trust me. Things just got complicated. Alright, you and I are about to watch a commoner shake up society. Mew feels all those greedy eyes on him, but his face is stone cold as he scans the room. Suddenly, he spots a face he knows, the young noble he thrashed a few days ago. Mew smirks inwardly. Looks like this idiot is Duke's son after all. The world is tiny, isn't it? The brat clearly recognizes Mew as well. A wave of pure hatred and old resentment makes the noble lose his mind right there. He points at Mew and screams, "That damned common drifter is the one who injured me." But the Duke immediately silences his son with a cold shove. "Silence. Do you want to embarrass our family in front of His Majesty?" Choking on his own rage, the boy slumps back, staring at Mew with eyes full of poison. The king and Caden trade a look. Their respect for Mew just jumped another level. The king gives a warm, dignified cough. "Magic swordsman, tell me, why did you turn down my invitations until now?" Mew stays perfectly calm and replies with respectful distance. "Your Majesty, I have been a bit busy lately. Now watch this. This is the part you'll love. The Royal Merchant Guild was desperately short-handed recently. Because I had to keep using my secret art to freeze water for the special merchant orders, I was only able to pay my respects today." The king bursts into laughter. "Even I can't say no to ice cream. That is a reason no one could refuse." Looking at the kind king, Mew can't help but think of Tan Chenhe. His vicious father-in-law from his past life was a hypocrite. The king is different. The laughter stops as his voice turns solemn. "To thank you for saving Caden and me from death, I am granting you an honor worthy of your power. From the very first moment I saw you command the wind and snow, I knew the perfect title. From this day on, that name is your shield and your blade. Magic Swordsman Mew. Step forward and receive your new rank." Under everyone's gaze, Mew steps forward and drops to one knee with a flawless knight's salute. The king draws his ornate sword and taps Mew's shoulder. "In the name of King Nova of the Drake Kingdom, I grant this hero the rank of Duke and the title Blizzard. This name will go down in history. As long as this kingdom stands, Duke Blizzard will never be forgotten. Rise, Duke Blizzard." The king smiles and pats his shoulder. "Without you, I wouldn't be here. Please, accept my gratitude." Mew bows, his voice as calm as a frozen lake. "If it happened again, my sword would make the same choice." Suddenly, the Duke's annoying voice rings out. "Your Majesty, since he is a hero, he needs a territory that matches his new status. You and I can see the scheme hidden in this old fox's eyes." The king falls into deep thought. There is no good land left in the heart of the kingdom. This is a difficult situation. Have you forgotten the northern glacier we talked about a few days ago? The Duke's face darkens as he finally shows his true colors. That lawless land needs a strong lord. And the undefeated Duke Blizzard is the perfect candidate sent by the gods. Besides, the title Blizzard is a perfect match for that frozen death trap. I hear snowstorms are pounding Doris lately. Surely, that is an excellent sign. The king's face turns ugly. Mew watches coldly, seeing right through the old man's trap. This was just a petty revenge play for his worthless brat of a son. Ashi, standing nearby, suddenly tenses up. That northern territory? It's a forbidden zone where even the most bloodthirsty mercenaries refuse to go. Mew notices her worry. He turns to her with a calm glance that says, "Don't worry, I got this." Then, an arrogant, rebellious sneer spreads across his face. If they want to send him to a wasteland, fine. He will build his own empire from that ownerless desert and erase the class divide forever. "I will take this land of eternal cold." His voice is soft, but the dominance is undeniable. "Stick with me because you and I are about to see him conquer the impossible." "All right. Stick with me, you are about to see a cold Duke get his world rocked by a sudden, trembling sense of destiny. Duke Blizzard, wait." Ashi hiked up her dress and sprinted toward him, her eyes burning with a desperate resolve that ignored everything else. Reaching the end of the corridor, she suddenly stood on her toes and pulled him into a sweet, passionate farewell kiss. Love exploded between their lips in that moment. Mew, the man who moments ago had been commanding the hall and treating high-ranking nobles like dirt beneath his feet, now stood there completely paralyzed, like he was hit by a high-level immobilization spell. The cold-blooded lord of the North Sea suddenly looked like a total rookie soldier falling in love for the very first time. Seeing Mew's stunned face, Ashi turned bright red and bolted away like a startled young deer. Mew brushed his fingers against his lips as a literal fire began to burn deep within those dark eyes. He would survive any hell in the north to return in triumph. Months later, deep in the soul-chilling Northern Territory blizzards, two young scavengers clutched their crude weapons, stumbling through knee-deep snow in a state of pure, desperate panic. Right behind them, a massive frost wyvern beat its wings, exhaling deadly blasts of absolute zero frost breath. By now, both of them were regretting every single choice they had ever made. They just wanted a few dragon eggs for some quick gold, never dreaming they would enrage the king of the skies. In the chaos, the girl tripped over a rock buried beneath the snow and crashed down, twisting her ankle too badly to stand. She looked up, her pupils shrinking in terror. The wyvern's massive maw, lined with razor-sharp fangs, was already lunging toward the man in front of her, carrying a sickening, blood-stained stench. The man turned around, his face wearing the look of someone who knew they were already dead. He did not even have the strength left to run. This is the end. That same thought hit them both at once. Now watch this. At the very second death descends, a white streak tears through the storm with a heavenly downward slash. A massive wave of sword energy, 100 times colder than the wasteland, sliced through those scales like hot butter. In less than a heartbeat, the frost wyvern, a beast capable of wiping out a whole night order, was split in half right before the girl. Inside the swirling storm, Mew slowly sheathed his blade, his breathing completely calm and undisturbed. "You two still alive?" The girl collapsed in shock, her voice barely a whisper as she confirmed they were fine. They thanked him for saving their lives, but Mew stayed cold, as if he had merely swatted a fly. "No need. Consider it a welcome gift from your new lord. Since you are not dead, maybe we will meet again soon." Before they could even process the shock, Mew turned into a streak of blue light and vanished into the white wilderness. The girl stared blankly at the fading afterimage, her entire worldview completely shaken by what she just saw. That speed was far beyond human limits. Not even a top-tier wind mage could pull off something like that. But then, they discovered one deeply frustrating little detail. "You and I saw this coming." The mysterious lord casually walked off with the dragon eggs they risked their lives for. A few days later, inside his crumbling fortress, Mew sat on the freezing throne inside his great hall, his eyes dark and totally unreadable. Today was his formal inauguration, yet the massive hall built for hundreds was hauntingly empty. His attendant wiped away cold sweat, reporting nervously that he was deeply sorry for the situation. "The Corellian tribe has always hated outsiders. I will send another messenger to the village immediately." Mew raised a hand, cutting him off. "If they want to slap me in the face, do not send anyone else." He looked around at the broken castle, noting it did not even have a single working fireplace. Mew finally understood why every previous lord had been chased out of here by these local tyrants. Mew leaned back in his chair, a dangerous, sharp smile beginning to curve across his lips. Since being polite was a total waste of time, he would use the only method he knew best: physical persuasion. Days later, in a local tavern, several bruised men surrounded their leader, complaining that the new lord was a monster. He moves so fast you cannot even see him. One touch, and you are hit with high-level paralysis. And the worst part is his precision. That pain from your meridians twisting backward is something words cannot describe. Just as the crowd was reaching a boiling point, a lookout burst through the tavern door. "And trust me, we are about to see some fireworks. The lord is standing in the square right now. All right, you and I are about to see a legendary warrior finally meet his match." Battle intent blazed in his eyes. He had been waiting for this. Marcus kicked open the heavy door, clenching both fists tight. Today, he was going to see exactly what this new noble was truly made of. By now, the village square was packed tight, with villagers eager to see the drama. And there stood Mu, arms crossed, looking at the massive crowd as if they were nothing more than a swarm of tiny ants. Suddenly, a young girl shoved through the crowd, waving excitedly at Mu. He glanced over, clearly confused. It was the same girl he saved from a frost wyvern days ago. Marcus froze because that girl was his own daughter, Luya. She ran to her father's side, shouting anxiously, "Dad, stop. He's the one who saved me from the wyvern attack." Marcus went stiff the moment he heard those words. He had fully intended to humiliate this new lord in front of the whole tribe. But now, this man was his daughter's savior. Plus, taking down a frost wyvern alone was a feat even holy knights couldn't pull off. Watch closely, things are about to get very complicated. As Corellian's strongest, Marcus was torn between his tribal pride and the debt he owed this stranger. Still, he had to acknowledge the other man's sheer power before anything else. Marcus stepped forward with an arrogant smirk. "I am Marcus, the strongest warrior Corellian has ever seen." Despite the obvious provocation, Mu did not even bother to reach out for a handshake. He just replied coldly, "I am Duke Blizzard, sent by the royals to bring you barbarians to heal." That blatant disrespect sent Marcus into a quiet rage. "My lord, I've heard the rumors, but I also heard you've been beating my tribesmen in the village without any reason. Is that really true?" Mu's gaze remained calm. "You're wrong, I wasn't beating your villagers. I was giving those idiots a free lesson in combat for even thinking about a rebellion." A sudden, suffocating pressure gripped Marcus's throat. "Or do you want to find out the price of rebellion too?" Seeing Marcus drenched in cold sweat, Mu pulled back his aura and offered a different way out. "Corellian is a land of deathly cold. Since ancient times, your people survived on strong liquor. As the top warrior, I assume your tolerance is as massive as your muscles." Mu raised an eyebrow, his voice dripping with challenge. "How about a drinking match? My rules. If I win, you swear absolute loyalty to me." The tribesmen immediately exploded into frantic whispers. You and I both know drinking matches in these stories never end well for the loud guy. This pretty outsider was practically begging for death. But Marcus? He had total confidence in his gut. He laughed, accepted the bet, and slammed his chest, swearing he would not back down. At the table, Marcus ripped off his furs, showing off a body built like solid stone. "My lord, if you're scared, last chance to run." Mu just leaned back, looking bored. "Retreat isn't in my vocabulary." "Start pouring." After several barrels of liquor strong enough to kill a horse, Marcus's eyes began to glaze over. The villagers panicked. "Chief, are you okay? You look like you're at your limit." Luya rushed over and grabbed his cup. "Dad, please, no more." But Marcus's pride was wounded. He shoved her aside, roaring that he could handle 3 more. Then, under the horrified eyes of his entire tribe, the undefeated strongest warrior of Corellian slammed onto the floor, completely passed out. His subordinates were stunned. They couldn't believe their invincible chief actually lost to an outsider. But here's what they didn't know. Mu had been secretly circulating his inner energy the whole time. He turned every drop of alcohol into vapor, venting it through his fingertips. It was a total mismatch. Mu stood up, dusted off his perfectly clean clothes, and looked at the silent crowd. 5 days from now, I expect you all at my fortress on time. Don't make me wait. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this takeover plays out. 5 days later, inside the ruined fortress hall, Mu sat on the lord's seat, staring down at the gathered tribesmen. His tone carried a faint trace of approval. "Looks like you know how to keep your word. Trust me, you will love what happens next." Marquez, still looking half dead from his massive hangover, stood at the front of the line with a grim face, but he still lowered his head through gritted teeth. The people of Corellian definitely know how to lose with dignity. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before his expression hardened. "Since everyone is finally here, I will get straight to the point. You have 10 days to pack your lives and prepare for relocation." The moment that order landed, the hall erupted into pure chaos. Unable to stay quiet, Luya stepped forward to demand an explanation. "You expect us to cram our whole tribe into this ruin?" Mu shot her a freezing look. "Do you really think this wreck fits everyone? I mean, we are moving deeper into the far north. Over the past 5 days, I personally scouted the entire surrounding terrain. Past the northern snow line, there is a perfect basin. It could hold not just your people, but 10,000 without a single problem." A violent wave of unrest broke out among the crowd and fear spread rapidly. Marcus's face shifted dramatically as he shouted his protest. "My lord, we know the place you're talking about, but that's a death zone where ice ogres live in packs." Mu tapped the armrest with total indifference. "You mean those bald monsters that look like fat, 2-legged bears?" Marcus sucked in a sharp breath. "Don't tell me you actually encountered those bone-eating beasts." Mu smiled, but that look was somehow terrifying. "Check this out, he didn't just meet them. He buried the whole pack and left not a single one alive." That shocking news plunged the entire hall into a deathly silence. Every single eye stared at the man on the throne in total, stunned disbelief. Mu folded his hands and scanned the room. "If there is nothing else you're scared of, get out and start packing." The meeting ended as the tribesmen stumbled out like sleepwalkers, still trapped in the shock of his insane claim. After days of scouting and killing ogres, even Mu felt tired and was about to stretch his aching muscles. Just then, a clumsy greeting drifted up from downstairs. Mu looked down to see Luya and that commoner named Jack. Seeing their hesitation, Mu already knew why they had come. Good timing. "I was planning to call for you anyway. Come with me." In the courtyard, Mu pointed at several chirping hatchlings on the ground. "After I killed that frost wyvern, the eggs I brought back somehow hatched." Luya exploded the second she saw them. "So it was you, my lord. You were the one who stole our spoils that day. How can you act like a bandit?" Mu shot her a cold glance. "If I hadn't stepped in, you'd be dragon dung by now. You still want to lecture me about ownership?" That brutally simple logic left her completely speechless. "I thought about keeping them as pets. But these winged lizards eat like monsters and they never stop screaming. Take them away before they drive me insane." But Luya explained some common sense that gave Mu a real headache. Apparently, frost wyverns have an incredibly powerful imprinting instinct. You and I both know this is a disaster. These killing machines now think Mu is their actual mother and won't recognize anyone else. Luya wore a look that practically screamed, "You have no idea how lucky you are. My lord, frost wyverns are the kings of the sky. Taming one is a legendary honor, yet you're complaining?" Jack excitedly added that with them, you could fly 1,000 kilometers straight to Stettin, the second capital of the Gaia Kingdom. It is the largest trade hub on the continent. On horseback, it takes months, but on a wyvern, a round trip takes maybe 2 hours. Hearing that, Mu's heart skipped a beat. He had completely underestimated the strategic value of these creatures. His eyes deepened as he thought, "How do I get these little things to grow into perfect transport machines as fast as possible?" A wildly ambitious and brilliant commercial empire was already taking shape in his mind. A few days later, the tribe set out through the blizzard. While the column moved, the female mercenary Savina ran up beside Mu, gasping for air. Before departure, the children who once begged Mu for martial arts lessons had cried and refused to stay behind. In the end, after their relentless pestering, Mu reluctantly agreed to bring those promising children along to the north as well. My lord, after marching through this snow for 3 days straight, everyone is reaching their limit. Mounted on a massive snow camel, Mu swept his sharp gaze across the column. Fatigue is only part of it. The real problem is that these barbarians still don't trust me. Trust me, their journey is about to get much more dangerous. Stick with me, this is about to get intense. Once you see what's waiting for you, your knees will bend for me on their own. At the very back of the line, villagers trembled as they whispered about what kind of hell lay ahead. Did he really slay those ogres alone? Mu didn't even bother looking back. His voice cut through the air like razor-sharp ice. I never waste words. If you don't believe me, stay here and feed the wolves. Are Corellian warriors really that much weaker than women? Mu pulled his cloak tight and walked deeper into the storm without a shred of mercy. Savina stood frozen, shaken by the king-like pressure he radiated without even having to raise his voice. Mu caught her staring and let a small smile touch his lips. Relax. Once they see the destination, their doubts will vanish. Savina's heart skipped as she watched his broad back lead the way. After a grueling trek through the snow, the group finally reached their goal, a massive cavern hidden between the peaks. Suddenly, all their exhaustion was gone, replaced by the disbelieving cheers of the tribesmen. This hidden cave actually held geothermal hot springs, as warm as springtime. It was paradise in a frozen hell. Mu looked down at his celebrating people from above. Now watch this. Mu declares this their new throne, envisioning the grand, towering palaces of the Central Plains in his mind. The past was gone, but his legend would continue in this world. Mu snapped his eyes open and raised a hand. From today, this fortress is named White Ice Castle. The name sounded strange to the tribesmen, but no one argued while standing next to the warm water. Suddenly, in the middle of the celebration, something moved in the dark corners of the cave. A magical beam suddenly shot out from the shadows, striking a young wyvern hatchling. The creature cried out in pain, collapsing and convulsing on the spot. A man in tattered robes muttered from the darkness, confused by high-grade wyverns being in this wasteland. I'm wondering the same thing. A cold voice suddenly whispered directly into the mage's ear without warning. Why is a rat hiding on my land and attacking from the shadows? The mage was paralyzed with pure terror before he could even think of casting a defensive spell. Mu's finger pressed against his back, and a surge of freezing force instantly sealed every magic circuit in his body. The mage stiffened like a block of wood. Unable to resist, Mu grabbed him by the collar and slammed him down like literal garbage. Before I cut you into pieces and feed you to the dragons, Mu said with ice-cold eyes, give me one reason not to kill you. Under that crushing pressure, the man confessed. He was the former lord of this land, Count Jerome. Thinking his noble title made him untouchable, Jerome actually tried to negotiate with Mu as if they were equals. Mu just laughed in pure fury and flicked a finger. You and I saw that coming, right? Jerome's knees buckle as a mountain of pressure crushes him into the dirt. A stray dog who couldn't even keep his own land actually thinks he can bargain with me? One more useless word and I'll kill you myself. Mu withdrew the pressure and issued a cold command. Use your magic to heal my wyvern, then report to me. I still have some use for you. Jerome was confused. Use for me? Mu just gave him the smile of a true exploiter. As a mage and former lord, congratulations. You're now my chief secretary and manual laborer. Mu walked away toward the control room, leaving Jerome collapsed and broken on the floor. Jerome knew he'd just messed with a complete tyrant. His first official assignment arrived immediately. Write an official letter to the king demanding tax exemption. Tell him the north is too harsh and we need those funds for building. Jerome shook his head. My lord, that won't work. The capital's nobles will block this move instantly. A tax exemption sets a dangerous precedent. Other lords will use it as an excuse to stop paying their own taxes, which would destroy the entire kingdom's financial balance. Even if the king favors you, this won't pass. Hearing this, Mu understood the real problem. The one standing in his path was not the king himself. And that's where we leave it. You and I know he's finally facing the duke who wants him dead. All right. You and I are about to see what happens when a ruler gets backed into a corner with no legal options left. Jerome sighed, expecting his master to finally retreat. But he should have known better than to doubt Mu again. Since the law was a dead end, Mu chose a path of pure, savage extraction. He leaned in and whispered a plan so reckless it was insane. Jerome nearly choked. My lord, this is pure suicide. Are you actually being serious right now? Mu just straightened his collar, a look of total dominance in his eyes. There is no game on this earth I am afraid to play. He sent Jerome to prepare. Days later, every Corellian tribesman was summoned to the main hall of White Ice Castle for an emergency meeting. The warriors looked around in total confusion. None of them could guess what their overbearing master was cooking up this time. Mu stood tall on the platform, his voice echoing off the cold stones. Is every single one of you here? Marcus and his daughters stood in the front row, fully armed. Luya looked up at the platform, her expression completely lost. My lord, we have brought every weapon you asked for. But why did you gather all of us here today? Now, pay attention here, because Mu is about to drop a massive bombshell on everyone. Our target? Frost wyvern eggs. The hall erupted in chaos the second he said it. Those wyverns were the undisputed kings of the sky. Stealing their eggs was like snatching a cub from a tiger. Mu lowered his hands, instantly silencing the room. To ensure survival, 30 people per team. Remember this. Our first objective is stealing eggs, not dying glorious deaths. Jerome will hand out the targets and routes. Every egg you retrieve will mean wealth beyond your wildest dreams. Then Mu dangled the ultimate hook. The team that brings back the most eggs gets a personal reward of 100 gold coins from me. Big rewards always bring out the bravest souls. The warriors who were hesitant before suddenly saw red. 100 gold coins was an amount they couldn't even imagine. Even the normally steady Marcus drew his battle axe and let out a thunderous roar of approval. Money talks, and these warriors were ready for blood. Looking at the battle-hungry tribesmen, Mu nodded, knowing he finally had them exactly where he wanted them. He turned to Jerome with a new mission. For the next 10 days, I want you to watch every single team closely. Mark down anyone who shows real tactical sense or guts. Jerome immediately understood the hidden meaning behind those words. My lord, are you planning to handpick elites from these savages to build your own private knight order? Mu glanced at him, quietly impressed by the fallen mage's sharp political instincts. It seemed his decision to force this man into service as his personal advisor was finally starting to pay off. Jerome's expression turned worried as he offered a sharp warning. My lord, the Duke commands the legendary Lion Knights, a force that rivals the Royal Guard. We are starting with absolutely nothing. Mu let out a cold, sharp laugh. Pride for his own strength was shining brightly in his eyes. It won't be long before the force I train with my own hands tears those lions into bloody pieces. Let's pause for a second. This is personal now. Mu has found his lost love's reincarnation. To keep her safe, he had to seize power beyond anything else. Mu turned and roared his marching orders to the entire hall. Warriors of White Ice Castle, move out! Across the frozen wastes, a desperate hunt for the Masters of the Sky finally began. Marcus definitely proved why he's known as the strongest Corollian warrior. Using nothing but his own monstrous strength, he took a full-speed impact from a diving frost wyvern right to the chest. He spat out blood and roared for the second line to throw the nets. From above, massive nets made of treated beast sinew fell like a trap. In an instant, the arrogant wyvern was pinned down in the snow, struggling wildly to escape. Mu and Jerome stood on a distant ridge, watching the chaos unfold, like cold chess players surveying the board. Mu gave a subtle nod. It looked like these days of actual combat finally taught his barbarians the value of teamwork. Jerome was stunned. His lord wasn't just stealing eggs, he was planning to force imprint them right from the moment they hatched. Once this plan worked, these rulers of the sky would become nothing more than heavy-duty transport beasts, hauling rare treasures out of the frozen north. He'd flood the wealthy southern cities with rare goods, building a commercial empire strong enough to seize control of all continental trade. But what truly terrified Jerome was how Mu used raw profit and cold-blooded logic to turn these wild barbarians into a single, unified weapon. Among those savage fighters, one young boy stood out from the rest. In every brutal hunt, that final, lethal strike to the dragon's throat was almost always delivered by this one mysterious boy. So what do you and I take from this? Mu just found his perfect weapon. Trust me, the world isn't ready. Trust me, you'll love this kid. Jerome mentally scanned his wanted posters, trying to identify the warrior who just gutted a wyvern with dual blades. My lord, that is Swiftwind Highgawait, a former vigilante who spent his days robbing the rich to help the poor. Framed by corrupt nobles and tossed into a dungeon, he managed a daring escape and fled to this lawless territory. Surprise flickered across Mu's face. He wasn't local, yet he fought alongside these northern barbarians like he was born here. This lone wolf had potential. Jerome, Mu commanded with an icy stare, find every outlaw who sought refuge in the north. I need a complete list of names. Jerome shivered, wiping cold sweat from his forehead in the sub-zero wind. Without even realizing it, the young tyrant had just dumped another crushing mission onto his advisor's lap. Days later, inside White Ice Castle's massive hall, Mu lounged on his throne like a cold-blooded businessman ready to profit. Since you all went on that insane hunting spree, we have plenty of eggs. Now, let's talk about your reward. The Corollian warriors, usually hungry for blood, let out a massive roar of pure greed at the mention of payment. Suddenly, their leader Marcus raised his hand for silence. Lord Mu, we risked our lives to bring you these eggs, just as you ordered. But tell us, what is the point of all this? Mu's eyes glowed with the fire of absolute power. I get it, you're curious. Why steal eggs when you could just kill the dragons, right? It's simple. When a frost wyvern hatches, the first person it sees becomes its mother, creating a bond of absolute loyalty. Pay attention here, you and I are about to watch him turn these sky rulers into a massive private freight fleet to dominate the world. And the top product that will make us a fortune? Authentic ice ogre leather, processed for the global market. The moment those words landed, ice ogres? The warriors froze in place. Panic set in instantly, and some screamed, "Are you trying to feed us all to those monsters just to make a buck?" Mu stood up slowly, and a crushing wave of freezing chi pressure instantly silenced everyone in the room. Have you forgotten who cleared out that entire basin of ogres single-handedly just a few short days ago? Mu's gaze was sharp as a blade. Do you think a lord who climbed to power over a mountain of ogre corpses is stupid enough to waste his own men? Those words, dripping with dominance, immediately snapped the tension and brought the room back under his thumb. Their terror turned into cult-like worship. With a godlike man leading them, they felt like they could challenge death itself. The warriors slammed their knees to the floor. "Lord Mu, the lives of the Curillians are yours to use." Right as Mu is about to seal their loyalty forever, the heavy wooden doors burst open and his apprentice Leo rushes inside, gasping and trembling in total panic. Mu's brow furrowed in annoyance. He didn't appreciate his big moment being cut. "Can't you see I am in the middle of something important? Calm down and speak." Leo's face was white as a ghost as he gasped out, "Mu, something's wrong. Really wrong. Savina is dying. Trust me, you and I can feel the dread as Mu's heart sinks at the news. Take me to her, right now." Out in the open ice fields, the freezing wind cuts like knives. Annie and Luffy were kneeling beside Savina's limp body, sobbing in total despair as her life slipped away. Then, at their absolute breaking point, a dark silhouette appeared through the snow. Mu walked toward them like a grim reaper. "Move, let me see her." His fingers pressed against her freezing skin, and his face turned into a mask of rage. It was worse than he feared. Her very life was being consumed by a violent, freezing energy from within. "How did this happen? Tell me every single detail." Mu's voice was like a blade of ice. Annie sobbed, explaining they were scouting for a wyvern farm when they stumbled upon a field of strange, glowing flowers out in the snow. Blooming there were frost blossoms, like something out of a myth. Savina thought they were beautiful and picked some for Mu to study as a gift for him, but on the walk back, she suddenly froze over and collapsed. She hasn't opened her eyes since then. Mu gently opened her hand and stared at the flower. It pulsed with a haunting, deep blue light. His eyes went wide. This wasn't some random magical plant. It felt familiar, calling to something deep inside his soul. It was the legendary snow lotus, the supreme spiritual medicine from the martial world of the Central Plains. Why was a treasure this rare blooming like a weed in this strange land? He couldn't believe his luck. Mu's eyes gleam. "Trust me, you and I know this disaster is actually a massive win. All right, you and I are jumping right into a life-or-death situation as Mu makes a split-second call. Saving Savina from death's door was the priority. That snow lotus fruit was packed with insane, bone-chilling spiritual energy. But if a regular person tried to take it in, they would need an elite internal art just to keep that soul-freezing backlash from killing them instantly. Savina went down because her weak frost technique was no match for such a brutal, icy poison. Mu forced the fruit into her mouth and slammed his palms against her back. Massive North Sea chi flooded her body like a broken dam, purging the deadly cold. A moment later, Savina, who looked like a literal ice statue, suddenly gasped for air and finally opened her eyes. Mu kept his hands firmly in place. "Now, pay attention here." Mu growls at her to seize this chance and immediately start the cultivation method he taught her. Having just escaped the grave, Savina understood the gravity of the moment and didn't dare slack off. She immediately steadied her breath and began guiding that violent spiritual energy according to the Eastern breathing method. As her chi circulated fast, that lethal cold poison wasn't just neutralized, it actually condensed into a crystal-clear frost core inside her center. Mu slowly pulled away, a rare look of satisfaction in his eyes. "Not bad. Your power has officially hit a new level. This snow lotus was better than expected. If he could harvest enough, it would be the massive boost he needs to break into the transformation realm." Mu made a silent vow right then. He had to visit that flower field himself. It would be the ultimate stepping stone for his return to the very top. Meanwhile, Jerome handed over a list of elite fighters. Mu looked it over and decided it was finally time to build a real army of his own. Deep inside the council hall, Mu looked down at the crowd and declared, "Starting now, I will forge you into a truly unstoppable army. You will be known as the Blizzard Knights." He threw a frost emblem to a young man. "Hi, your performance on the battlefield was exactly what I was looking for. Starting today, you are the first commander of this order." "Okay, I know what you were thinking. And yeah, building an empire starts now. Schools, hospitals, taverns, White Ice Castle will have it all. Everyone is being reshuffled based on their skills. This isn't a game, the orders came fast. Osborne, you are in charge of the security force. Your job is to wipe out every threat inside. Jerome, you stay as my chief political officer. Jerome tried his usual complaining, but Mu just shut him down with a cold stare and crushing pressure. You old fox, if you refuse this, I will crush your staff with my own bare hands. Jerome broke into a sweat and stood tall, swearing to give everything for the cause. On top of that, Mu created 2 separate outer security divisions. The first echelon was tasked with defending the castle, before eventually extending its reach across the entire Corellian territory. They were to bring in every displaced civilian they could find to grow the population. Mu decided to lead this force himself, using sheer tyranny to stabilize their new foundation. The second unit was the highly anticipated Wyvern Riders. Since the babies were too young to carry knights, the unit stayed on standby for now. Mu looked at Marcus's daughter. Luya, you will be the commander of the Wyvern Riders. Once they are ready for war, the rest will be sent to the Merchant Corps for centralized deployment. Meeting adjourned. A few days later, they gathered for another strategic council. Jerome rushed in with a pile of files, muttering about how the tyrant had stolen every second of his sleep. He pushed the doors open, panting, "Sorry, my lord, I am late again." Then he looked across the table and froze, as if he were seeing the impossible. Savina was sitting right there at the end. Wasn't she dying just days ago? And what was that terrifyingly cold aura radiating from her body now? Mu ignored Jerome's shock and simply tapped the table, signaling him to get into his seat immediately. He leaned back and tipped his chin toward Osborne. "Continue with your security report, Osborne." Osborne looked grim. The security force just started, and the jail is already packed with over 20 troublemakers. Worse yet, half of them are dangerous fugitives who came up from the Southern Kingdom. Trust me. You and I are about to see Marcus explode as he slams the table in pure rage. All right, you and I are watching as Marcus demands these Southern thugs be imprisoned forever or just executed on the spot. Mu's gaze cuts through Marcus like a freezing blade as he mocks him. If we are actually locking up criminals, shouldn't you, the man who led a rebellion and chased Lord Jerome out of his own territory, be the first one tossed into an ice cell? Marcus breaks into a cold sweat and starts stammering. "My lord, that was just self-defense against those tyrants." Mu sneers, his voice dripping with absolute contempt. "So your revolt is noble, but Commander Hiwat's exile is somehow a filthy crime." Marcus is left speechless by that stinging truth. All he can do is awkwardly bow his head toward Hiwat. "Sorry, I was not aiming at you." Hiwat, an exile himself, grips his twin blades with a calm, restrained look. Some crimes are really just labels the world forces onto people who have no choice. But the problem right in front of us still needs a real solution. Now pay attention as the meeting hits a deadlock. Savina stands up with a cold light in her eyes. "My lord, may I offer a suggestion?" Mu finds her new attitude interesting and gives her a small, quick nod to keep going. Savina looks Mu right in the eyes, her voice steady. "If we cannot erase the hate for these fugitives, then from now on, any violent criminals we recruit should be assigned to the most dangerous vanguard unit. Let them lead the charge and hunt the ice ogres." Her words hit the room like a bomb. It is basically a death sentence. But Mu actually laughs, looking at Savina with clear, dark satisfaction. That cold, efficient strategy fits his taste perfectly. Proposal approved. We will do exactly that. A few days later, deep in the frozen, blizzard-ravaged wilderness, a suicide squad of top-level fugitives is out hunting ogres. In the howling wind, Hiwat lowers his stance and gives out orders with calm, sharp precision. "Spread out. Forget that trashy street-brawling style and attack in a strict night formation. Rini, Gray, get ready to charge." In the snow, a giant ogre twitches its nose, sniffing out its next meal. Then suddenly, Rini and Gray drop from the sky like 2 human cannonballs. They slam their weapons deep into the beast's back. That perfect backstab makes the ogre unleash a deafening, painful roar. But in a heartbeat, the beast spins around and swings its massive club in a brutal sweep. The counter comes too fast for Rennie. His legs go weak and he freezes right where he stands. At the last second, Hiwat flashes into the fray and shoves Rini out of the way. He presses in at point-blank range, his twin blades carving the ogre up in a savage flurry. Rini rolls and scrambles backward, barely avoiding having his head smashed off. Hiwat's blades carve a massive wound into the monster, sending black blood spraying everywhere. Seeing the perfect opening, all 3 of them close in and launch a devastating finishing strike together. Steel flashes and the giant crashes down. The fight is finally over, and everyone takes a long, heavy breath. You and I can see it after dancing with death. These thugs are finally being forged into real, courageous warriors. Rini and Gray high-five, already dreaming about hitting the tavern and drinking themselves stupid tonight. They do not notice that from the distant shadows, a pair of eyes is watching them without blinking. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ice fields, another squad moves forward with very cautious steps. A strange rustling sound suddenly echoes from the woods up ahead. The mercenaries tense up and decide to probe the area with ranged fire. Several archers draw their bows and fire a blind volley into the trees. Strangely, the arrows make no sound when they land, as if they just vanished into a black hole. The group relaxes, thinking it was just a false alarm, and they move in to retrieve their arrows. But the moment they step forward, a massive white figure suddenly bursts out from behind the trees. Back at the castle, Mu is pleased with the hunting pace. It seems the men are finally overcoming their fear of ogres. After getting a taste of how fast that cold, hard cash comes in, the Blizzard Knights are running on pure adrenaline. As long as they follow his formations, farming those oversized beasts has basically become assembly line work. But right then, a scout rushes in with some panicked news. A new monster has appeared on the ice fields, and several squads have already been badly wounded. Trust me, you and I are about to see a white beast even larger than an ogre. Mu frowns at once. Alright, you and I are diving into a world where monsters have brains. Ogres are usually dumb, but this thing set a trap. Mu didn't hesitate. Jerome, tell everyone to stop the hunt immediately. Jerome swallowed hard, feeling the sudden tension. Boss, are you handling this yourself? Mu pulled on his coat, his expression freezing over. Yes. Gather the men now. Clean up the mess when I'm done. Mu took off across the ice fields, moving like a bolt of black lightning. While sprinting, he activated his tracking trump card, the Eye of Insight. Suddenly, every movement within 5 kilometers became instantly clear. It took only seconds to lock onto that violent, abnormal energy signature, pulsing in the distance. Target found. Mu drew the plain moon sword in one fluid motion, and his sword aura exploded outward, transforming into a massive blade of pure force that came crashing down toward the snow creature's head. The monster felt the killing intent. Pure terror washed over its ugly, distorted face. Now pay attention, because this almost never happens. The blade flashed through the beast, but for once, Mu actually missed the killing blow. The thing had somehow dodged his fatal strike. Mu looked back. His slash had only carved a deep, bloody trench across the creature's massive arm. This high-level monster usually ruled the wild without a care, but now it was sweating in pure panic. The power gap was so massive it felt like it already had one foot in the grave. Mu held his sword level, staring coldly at the hulking beast trembling in front of him. Pray that in your next life, you are born as a human. Mu blurred forward at sonic speed. Wrapped in chi as cold as absolute zero, the plain moon sword stabbed straight for the center of the monster's brow. But then, the impossible happened. That massive creature vanished into thin air right before his eyes. Mu paused, recalling what Luffy had once told him about high-level mages. Mages above the 5th circle can use teleportation. Who knew a savage beast could wield legendary spatial magic? Playing void games with me? Mu let out a cold, sharp snort. As long as there's magical residue, you won't escape my grasp. He raised his left hand. High-pressure chi instantly compressed into a sphere in his palm. With a thunderous blast, a wave of icy force shot through the spatial crack, chasing the creature's escape path. At first, the strike seemed to miss. The thing was huge, yet it moved through the void like a greasy sewer rat. But Mu still had its aura locked down tight. Its mana pool had limits. A teleport like that wouldn't carry it very far. He closed his eyes, pushing his senses to the limit like a living, breathing radar system. Okay, stick with me, because what he finds next is absolutely wild. Hidden beneath a dead tree, Mu finds a secret tunnel and jumps in. Buried underground was a massive complex of ancient ruins. He looked at the dust-covered stone bookshelves. He immediately guessed this place was once a giant library. Behind one of those shelves, Mu spotted the trembling snow creature. Your hide-and-seek skills are pathetic, Mu said, dragging his sword across the stone floor. At least pick a spot big enough for all that fat. By now, the monster was losing its mind. It shrank into the corner, flailing its giant claws while practically begging him not to come any closer. Mu stopped, stunned. A beast speaking human language? What are you, a person under some kind of curse? The snow creature was terrified and started shouting incoherently. No, please. I am Condor, a great snowman warrior. Mu was still processing that when a panting Jerome finally caught up to him. Boss, in the ancient tongue, Howie means snowman. Jerome arriving this fast felt a bit suspicious to Mu. Jerome's explanation was simple. Looking at all the destruction, there was nobody else on this continent who could have caused it. Jerome then turned his gaze toward the stone bookshelves. He was baffled. How could legendary snowmen, usually seen as savages, be hiding inside an ancient library like this? Mu pressed his sword closer. That's exactly what I'm asking. You said your name is Condor. Where did you come from? The snowman just looked confused, as if he hadn't understood a word. Mu lost his patience. Inner force flickered at the sword's tip. Talk. My patience has limits. The brute's eyes turned red, looking like he'd been wronged. Then he broke down, shouting that he came from a place called Growlak. Growlak? Is that your village? Is there a whole nest of you there? The giant nodded desperately, too scared to speak. While Mu interrogated him, Jerome was already busy, flipping through the ancient books with massive interest. And that's where we leave it for now. You and I are going to have to see what happens next. Stick with me, we are about to see an interrogation where one wrong word means game over for this big guy. I never killed anyone. A true Howie warrior would never strike down those who are innocent. Jerome jumps in to help. Boss, the giant is telling the truth. Everyone was beat up, but nobody actually died. Mew thinks for a second. It was true. He hadn't heard a single word about any funerals lately. Now that is interesting. Condor leans against the wall, looking like a total victim. Those humans were the ones who invaded the Holy Land. I just blasted them back out. Mew, our main character, gets it instantly. Most likely his reckless men got too greedy grinding for levels and accidentally stepped onto the wrong territory. Mew signals Jerome to heal Condor. While the mage restores his health, Mew starts digging for more information. Mew puts on his best friendly face, the perfect look for a ruthless businessman. Condor, tell me where this holy land is. I promise my people won't cross the line again. The snowman gets excited. Really? Mew gives him a cold stare. Sure. But isn't your attitude toward me a bit too casual? Do you even know what respect is? Honestly, explaining manners to a beast was like talking to a brick wall. Mew can't be bothered anymore. Why even waste time arguing with a half-illiterate brute? Jerome signals the healing is finished. Mew turns to leave. We are done here. Let's move out. Wait, boss. Jerome calls out from behind. Can I make one small request? Then, the scene shifts. Now pay attention that Dragon Egg finally hatched into a frost wyvern that rules the skies, solving a major crisis for Old Edmund's Merchant Guild. After all, Mew had promised to deliver high-purity ice to the Merchant Guild right on time. There was just one tiny problem. This massive delivery beast was scaring the absolute life out of everyone. Sitting on the dragon's back, Savina smiles. Long time no see, Mr. Edmund. Ice delivery. Ready to sign? Edmund is so happy he could dance. I knew the magic swordsman would keep his word. Staring at the massive magical beast in front of him, the old man starts screaming internally. A frost wyvern powerful enough to wipe out a night order is being used as a delivery truck? Just what kind of monster empire has he built? Savina suddenly remembers her real mission. She pulls out a special letter. The boss said this must reach that person. Edmund knows. He's thinking about the princess in the capital. We cut to the palace where Princess Ash is calmly holding a teacup. Across from her is a young man dripping with arrogance. Thank you for seeing me, princess. This guy was none other than Justin, the high and mighty son of the Duke. Justin sips his wine, proud of himself. She was still cold, but that only made the chase more exciting. If she were easy to win, it would be boring. One day, he'd make her bow down before him. Just then, a maid leans in and whispers something important into Ash's ear. Wait for it, even the ice-cold princess can't keep her cool once she hears who that letter is from. Ash stands up instantly. Take me there now. Justin's face turns pale. Princess, please wait. I came all the way here this morning just to see you. Ash turns back with a cold glare. I heard you were busy with sword practice. Don't waste your time here. Before he can react, she leaves. Staring at the princess as she walks away, Justin grinds his teeth until they nearly snap. Crash! He kicks the table over in a fit of rage. His eyes turn completely poisonous. Duke of Blizzard, I'll make sure there's nothing left of you to bury. Ash tears the letter open instantly. My dear Princess Ash, how have you been? Thanks to your charm, I'm doing great in the north. There are hot springs and crystal caves here. The scenery is actually quite beautiful. I built an ice castle with my own hands. It's stunning, but I feel empty because you aren't here. I've included a small gift with this letter. Wait for me. Ash stares quietly at the signature, holding the dazzling ice crystal flower that was tucked away inside the envelope. She presses the flower to her chest. To be honest, she had nearly gone mad these past few days. She couldn't understand why that rough, overbearing man was the only thing on her mind. And trust me, we can both tell from her eyes things are about to get real. All right, you and I are heading back to the northern cavern where Mew is desperately absorbing the ice-snow-lotus energy. Boom. The fragile petals in his hand couldn't handle the sheer pressure of his energy and exploded into icy shards. Mew rubs his temples. Breaking things was always the easy part. But this level of surgical precision and energy control is a massive headache for him. Suddenly, Jerome rushes in, eyes wide with excitement. Boss, you need to get back to the office right now. We found something huge. That underground library is actually a legacy left behind by an ancient, high-ranking mage. Mew doesn't even blink. So what? It is just a dead relic from thousands of years ago. Jerome is stunned by his boss's lack of interest. This is a lost magical cornerstone, a shortcut to the fifth ring. Suddenly, Mew senses a strange energy flicker. He narrows his eyes. Jerome, what are you hiding in that pouch? Jerome instantly starts sweating and tries to cover it up. Nothing, just some worthless rocks. That is why I didn't mention them. Swoosh! Using a dragon-grasping technique, Mew yanks the pouch right out of his hand from across the room. Watching Jerome panic and hop around in desperation, Mew lets out a cold laugh. The more you hide it, the more I want to see it. Now pay attention here. Mew opens the pouch and finds a bunch of glowing blue stones that look exactly like rock candy. Jerome is forced to confess. These things are called mana stones. Pure, crystallized magical power. Mew tosses the stones on the table. You were stashing high-tier resources. What is your plan? Jerome is currently stuck at the 4th ring bottleneck and just cannot break through to the 5th ring. He planned to use these crystals like performance enhancers to force his way to the next level. Mew looks at him quietly. Being stuck at a rank really is miserable, I get that. Then his eyes turn cold. But I absolutely will not allow you to brute force your way up with drugs. Jerome panics. Boss, if I get stronger, it helps the territory too. Please, just give me 2 of them. Mew shuts him down. A power level built on cheats has a hollow foundation. What? Plan to stay a loser? Forever? Whether it is martial arts or magic, breakthroughs come from insight. People chasing shortcuts usually die first. Jerome falls silent. There is no arguing with that. Back then, he had fought his way up through sheer grit, one step at a time, until he reached the 4th ring. Mu pats him on the shoulder. Don't rush it. Build up slowly and erupt when the time is right. Jerome feels like he just got a massive wake-up call. He really had almost forgotten the true heart of a spellcaster. Okay, but here is where things get wild. Jerome explains that these mana stones can actually be used for wireless communication. With a magic formation carved inside, even ordinary people could use them like walkie-talkies. And the craziest part? No towers needed. The signal could cover the entire world. Mew is stunned. In an age of cold weapons, this is an absolute, game-breaking advantage. Jerome, do you know what warfare and empire building lack most? The speed of information. Mew slams the table and gives the order. Polish every single stone immediately. I want them all turned into communication terminals. A few days later, White Ice Castle begins signal tests. Mew holds a glowing crystal tightly in his hand. A clear voice comes through the stone. On the other end, Jack shouts with excitement. I am 10 kilometers above the castle right now. Jack is riding a wyvern through the sky at full speed. Boss, full bars. The audio is crystal clear. Looking at this magical cell phone, Mu nods his head in satisfaction. No static. Just then, there is movement from outside the door. Savina returns on her wyvern after a business trip. In the conference room, Mew flips through the intelligence she brought back. That old fox Edmund really dug up everything on the surrounding kingdoms. Nicely done. But one name, Enos, triggers a strange sense of danger in Mew's mind. Mew taps the table. Can someone explain to me exactly who this Enos is? Hugart speaks up. I have heard of him. Rumor says he is a supreme sword saint at the peak of combat power. The moment they hear the words Supreme Sword Saint, Marcus and Jerome immediately change their expressions. You and I just witnessed a game changer, but a Supreme Sword Saint? That is basically a living god on land. You and I are jumping back into Mu's legendary journey. By Western standards, this so-called Supreme Sword Saint would at most be equivalent to the Huajing realm back home. As far as he knew, there weren't even 5 people on this lousy continent who had reached that level. A heavy trace of disappointment flashed through Mu's eyes. Way too weak. Still, if this guy was the supposed ceiling, he was interested in testing it himself to see just how hard that ceiling really was. It was a perfect chance to witness the strongest being in this world. Hugart added, This sword saint has one weird signature trait. Whenever he draws his blade, you can smell plum blossoms. Hearing that, Mu's eyes froze instantly. Back in the Central Plains, only one sword school used that scent. The legendary ultimate technique of Mount Hua. Mu's heart shook violently. Was he really not the only one who had crossed into this cursed world? He remembered back when he had bathed the martial world of the Central Plains in blood. The Mount Hua sect master he'd crushed had spat out one final vicious line before dying. If my Mount Hua chief disciple were here, you would never be this arrogant. Supposedly, that genius had mysteriously vanished during seclusion, disappearing from the world entirely. Mu always thought the old man was just bluffing with his last breath. Watch closely, you and I know this fated confrontation is now officially unavoidable. Right then, a royal knight order arrived at White Ice Castle with an outrageously arrogant display. Leading the pack was Justin, the Duke's son whose wrist Mu had already crippled. Leaning against the battlements, Mu smiled like a true villain. Well now, got your wrist fixed? Justin instinctively covered his arm as the old injury throbbed. All that humiliation surged back in a heartbeat. He drew his sword in a blind rage, his eyes bloodshot as he took an attack stance. But Mu didn't even spare him a second look. Princess, stop hiding. Come out. A lovely girl stepped from the carriage. Blushing, Ash said softly. It's been a while, Duke of Blizzard. Mu ignored the knights completely and took Ash straight to that hidden crystal cave from the letter. Facing a cavern full of dazzling crystals, Ash lit up like a child. Oh my god, this place is beautiful. Mu knew exactly how she'd gotten here. She must have pestered the king endlessly just to follow that letter. Looking at her stubborn yet innocent expression, Mu let out a quiet sigh. That headstrong nature was exactly like Jan's back then. He laughed bitterly to himself. To avenge her, he'd slaughtered the entire martial world before crossing dimensions to this new world. He'd wandered so far just to find her again. As long as the soul was still hers, that was enough. By the hot spring, Ash smiled like a blooming flower, completely lost in the breathtaking beauty. The atmosphere was perfect. Mu slowly reached out. Brushing her long hair, he pulled her into his arms and whispered, "To me, you are the most beautiful of all." Ash's heart skipped a beat, and her gaze softened instantly. In that moment, the obsession Mu had suppressed for years finally exploded. "I've missed you so much, Jan." The moment that name dropped, the air froze and the entire mood turned ice cold. Ash shoved him away violently, her face pale. "Jan. Who is Jan? Whose substitute do you think I am? You and I both saw that. Mu just died of social embarrassment right here." Ash's heart shattered completely. "I thought I was the only one in your heart. Now I see the truth. When you look at me, you're seeing someone else entirely." She was nearly screaming in a total breakdown. "Who do you really love, me or that woman named Jan?" For once, the maxed-out overlord went silent. How could he explain reincarnation? Tell her she was a ghost from his past? Ash whipped her head around and stormed off. "You don't need to explain. I already have my answer. The name you called me just now said everything." Watching her run farther away, Mu felt sicker than if he'd swallowed a fly. Even if he explained everything about past lives, she'd only think he was a madman. You and I are about to see if he can slowly win her heart back after such a massive disaster. But right at that critical moment, all right, you and I are jumping into a world where a top-tier assassin strikes like a venomous serpent. A flash of cold steel slices through the night. The Lotus of Love necklace on Mu's chest, his only lifeline, is severed and drops into the snow. In the dark, Justin asks coldly if the mission succeeded. The killer drops to one knee. "Young Master, the assassination was a total success. The target has been eliminated." Justin is absolutely thrilled by the news. A twisted, sick grin spreads across his face. Meanwhile, 2 guards stand watch outside the guest room. Inside, Ash is still wiping away tears while furiously cursing him in her head. "Why didn't that idiot just chase after me?" Suddenly a voice comes from outside the door. "Princess, someone is here to see you." Ash's heart leaps. He finally came to apologize. She hurries to pull the door open, her heart full of expectation. Now pay attention, because Ash expects Mu. But instead, she walks into a total nightmare where Justin stands there with blood all over his face. 2 guard corpses are crushed beneath his feet. He smiles wickedly. "My apologies, Princess." Late night visit. Ash's blood turns to ice. She tries to slam the door shut. Slash! Justin swings his sword and splits the solid wooden handle, and half the door clean through. Sword energy explodes outward, and the expensive door shatters into splinters on the spot. The shockwave blasts Ash straight back into the middle of the room. Justin licks his enchanted blade. "Sorry about that. This magic sword has a little too much power." Staring at the madman closing in, Ash shouts furiously. "Justin, how dare you? How dare you run wild? You actually killed my knights and dared to force your way into my royal chamber." Justin lifts Ash's chin with the tip of his sword. "They were just watchdogs. If they stood in my way, they deserve to die like the rest. And you, noble princess, ignored me like I was air just because of that low-born upstart." Justin bursts into smug, arrogant laughter. "But it doesn't matter anymore. Your little lover is already dead. The assassin I paid dearly for sent him straight to hell." Ash's mind rings with a deafening buzz as despair swallows her whole in an instant. How could that unbelievably powerful man possibly be dead? Justin reached out to grab her. By now, there probably isn't even enough left of him to piece together a full corpse. Just as his filthy hand is about to touch Ash. "You saw that too, right?" A foot slams square into Justin's face with a violent whistle. Bang! Justin flies backward like a cannonball and crashes hard into the corridor wall with terrifying force. It punches a human-shaped hole straight through the wall, burying him under a pile of rubble. Shaken, Ash slowly looks up. The moment she sees that tall figure standing in front of her, the relief of surviving and all her hidden grief burst out together, and tears pour down uncontrollably. Mu turns his head slightly, his tone calm but overwhelmingly reassuring to her. "Sorry, had to deal with a few bugs." But the instant those words leave his mouth, Mu's sharp instincts scream a lethal warning. The magic sword near the door moves like a living creature and shoots straight for his throat. It was an impossible backstab to guard against. Mu twists sideways to dodge it. The sword then flies back like a guided missile. Sword control. Mu looks at the purple glowing flying sword, his eyes turning stone cold. The blade traces an arc through the air and vanishes into the dust and rubble at the end of the corridor. In the darkness, a hand covered in black demonic armor catches the hilt with perfect precision. Mu moves Ash behind him and narrows his eyes. Still not dead? A knight clad in ominous black armor and shrouded in sinister energy slowly steps out from the massive hole in the rubble, dragging a great sword behind him. Justin has completely gone all out this time, transforming into a terrifying black demon knight. Mu sees through the trick instantly. It was the ultimate pay-to-win gear set that the Duke had poured a fortune into for his precious son. Top-tier magic armor, paired with a blood-drinking demon sword. With this god-tier loadout, he might actually stand a chance even against a supreme sword saint. Justin's voice rings out from behind the visor, deranged and arrogant. Duke of Blizzard, can you feel this power? This time, I am going to grind you into meat paste. As the dust clears, Mu steps into the light. He rolls his neck, his bones cracking loudly. Good. Now that you've paid to win, you finally qualify to die by my sword. He waves to the trembling Ash without turning around. Get farther back. Trust me, you and I don't want to miss what happens next. Do not let the blood splash on you. Ash stares at his back, her voice trembling. You will win, right? Trust me, you and I are about to see Mu show a trace of gentleness. Relax. Once I take out this trash, I will come back and stay with you. Mu flashes forward, shooting straight toward Justin. Staring at the man before him, Mu speaks coldly. So, you really are different this time. Justin charges with his demon sword. What? Are you going to start preaching to me again? The heavy blade, wrapped in pale violet energy, slashes down at high speed. Mu casually flips it aside with a single finger, looking on coldly. In the blink of an eye, the demon sword flies back to Justin. He grips it tight and launches another desperate charge. This time, Mu chooses to take the heavy blow head-on with nothing but his bare arm. Justin frantically pours magic into the strike. The sword aura surges wildly, forcing Mu back several steps as the attack continues relentlessly. The sight drives Justin nearly insane with pure excitement. Now watch this. Justin thinks he has him suppressed. He is convinced Mu is exhausted from fighting the assassins, making this his chance. Justin's speed spikes again. Let me be the one to finally end this battle. But just then, a flash of cold light slices his cheek. Then the armor guard on his body explodes into pieces. Justin's face changes in shock. That bastard used the same move that pierced his wrist back then. His armor shatters. With his enhanced form broken, Justin instinctively clutches his injured wrist. Mu looks at him with cold indifference. I thought the fight might put Ash in danger. Looks like I was worried for nothing, he says, gripping his wrist. Justin feels despair flooding in. You pretended to be pushed back just to widen the distance between yourself and the princess. A cold gleam appears in Mu's hand. Since you dared to hurt Ash, you will pay the price for it. In that instant, Justin feels a terrifying, invisible pressure crash down on him from all sides. Roaring in anger, he attacks first, gambling everything on one final strike. But it is too late. The icy energy in Mu's palm is ready. The freezing force sweeps across Justin's body. He instantly turns stiff, unable to move a single muscle as the frost takes hold. The next second, a dazzling cold radiance bursts forth. Mu was only being this cautious because he could not lose Ash again. Frost fills the air. The light fades, and Justin's arrogance is utterly crushed along with his broken body. In the snow and ice, he trembles so violently that his whole body is shaking like a leaf. You and I can see the terror in his eyes. His strongest trump cards have been broken to pieces. Stop wasting your effort. I already destroyed your core for good. You will never be able to use magic for the rest of your life. Hearing that, Justin feels as though he has fallen into an endless abyss of freezing ice. In utter despair, he still tries to throw a punch. But in his current state, it is nothing but pathetic self-humiliation. Mu casually lifts a hand and slaps him face first straight into the deep snow. Spend the rest of your life regretting today. From now on, you will be the weakling you always loved to bully. Before anyone notices, the sun has already risen. Mu raises a hand to shield the streak of sunlight falling across his face. It is getting late. After all, Ash was still in the castle, worrying herself sick over him. On the other side, Princess Ash also seems to be slowly regaining memories from her mysterious past life. Mu mobilizes everyone under his command to search for the necklace he lost during the earlier assassination attempt. As if fate had already arranged it, Ash is the one who finds it in the end. The moment Ash places the necklace back into Mu's hand, memories from her previous life begin awakening inside her dreams. That woman named Huayan seems to have had an inseparable connection with the Duke. In the dream, she even calls him brother. Ash should have felt jealous, but instead a strange warmth rises up in her heart. Mu's sudden arrival breaks her train of thought. Princess Ash, would you like to go on a trip and clear your mind? Outside the castle, a massive frost wyvern arrives in an instant. Its enormous body scares Ash's maid so badly that she drops to the ground. But the moment Ash sees the beast, she lights up with excitement instead. Her voice overflows with awe. This is the first time I've seen someone tame so many wyverns. Just then, Jack and Jerome walk over. My lord, we can depart at any time. Mu nods. What about the things I told you to prepare? At that moment, a little white snowball shoots out with a whoosh. And trust me, you and I are about to see things get even crazier. Jerome immediately lowers his head. Alright, you and I are about to see a fantasy romance that's literally out of this world, trust me. Jerome used a secret magic spell to shrink him down into this tiny, adorable ball of fluff. The legendary snowman that once made everyone tremble is now just a cute pet in Ash's arms. Seeing the genuine happiness on her face, Mu smiles in pure satisfaction. Everything's ready, let's move. Mu hops onto the wyvern and signals for Ash to join him up there. Ash looks up at him, and Mu reaches down to pull her up firmly by the hand. The frost wyvern takes flight, soaring high over the north. Ash leans into Mu's chest, feeling a sudden warmth in her heart. But there's a problem, she's terrified of heights. Mu gently places a hand on her shoulder to steady her. Princess, look up. Ash opens her eyes and is instantly breathless at the view unfolding right before them. It's a level of beauty she has never experienced in her entire life. The sunset cuts through the clouds, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Mu leans in and whispers into her ear. Feeling any better, princess? Something soft stirs in Ash's heart as a small smile touches her lips. He really was thinking of her this whole time. Ash looks up at him, thanking him for making her feel so much better. Mu pulls her closer into his embrace. Hold on tight, we're about to pick up some serious speed. They cut through the air under the starlight, and in that moment, the distance between them vanishes. Days later in Gaia, Luya is shocked when her boss suddenly shows up at the estate without warning. My lord, why no warning about your arrival? Mu just smiles. I brought a special guest here for some sightseeing. If it's business, Jerome can handle it. Right now, nothing matters more than this date with Ash. Mu turns to her. I had this place prepared just for you. So, do you like it? Now watch closely, because this pendant around his neck is about to trigger some major, unsettling memories from Ash's dreams. Mu's voice snaps her out of it. You okay? Ash just sighs, mentioning a strange dream she had. It was full of strange people. In the dream, I was 20 years old with black hair and eyes. But I wasn't happy at all. I was just completely overwhelmed with sadness. And my father was there, constantly trying to stop me from getting married. Ash gives an awkward smile. It sounds ridiculous, right? But Mu immediately knows what's up, his hand tightening around his necklace. Ash continues, lost in thought. In the dream, I was calling for someone. I called him brother. You saw that reaction, right? That one word shakes Mu to his core because only Hyan ever called him that. Ash senses the shift in the air and asks worriedly if the Duke of Blizzard is all right. Mu grips his necklace and takes a breath. Sorry, I lost my cool for a second. During dinner, Ash makes a request. Being called princess makes it feel like there's a wall between us. She hesitates. If it's okay with you, from now on, could you just call me Ash? Surprise flashes in his eyes as a shadow from his past rises up again. Mu smiles faintly. Why would I mind? Ash, I understand. And with that, dinner comes to a quiet end. Jerome enters right on time. All done? I've already handled everything over in the city of Stein. Ash freezes. There's no place like that in the kingdom of Drake. Mu explains the situation. Stein isn't in Drake. We've actually already crossed the border into the kingdom of Gaia. Gaia is a massive powerhouse in the northwest that has been ruled by queens for generations. It is truly a kingdom of women. Their female knight orders are legendary, strong enough to challenge any elite army in the world. Ash starts to worry. If she's fled this far, won't this cause a massive diplomatic nightmare? Mu doesn't care about politics. He just tells Jerome to finish up the business report. Jerome beams. Boss, our leather is flying off the shelves. Luya wants to build a factory here. Mu is skeptical. Selling raw hides is profitable enough. Is there a point to making finished goods? Jerome explains that Gaia is packed with noble women. Turning our leather into high-end bags and clothing would easily double their total profits. Luya's already found the best artisans in the city. Once you give the word, we can start. Mu nods in satisfaction. Putting Luya in charge of the merchant group was definitely the right move. Stick with me, let's see if Ash's past finally catches up to her. Alright, you and I are about to see how overpowered our main character really is when chaos breaks out. Outside, a massive fire is lighting up the night sky. Jerome's face drops instantly. Damn it. The flames are dangerously close to their guild. If they don't stop it now, their whole base will burn. Mu takes charge. He tells Ash to stay behind and protect Jerome. Without a second thought, Mu leaps down and sprints toward the heat. The scene is a total disaster. The fire is so intense that the crowd can only stand back and watch in terror. Mu realizes the situation is even worse than it looks. Then, he hears the sound of heavy breathing and footsteps behind him. It is Jerome and Ash. They completely ignored his orders and followed him anyway. Ash admits she was way too worried to just stay behind and wait. Suddenly, Mu's superhuman ears pick up a faint cry for help. He ignores Ash's warnings and dives headfirst into the burning building. This guy really has no fear. Mu smashes through a window and disappears into the smoke. He doesn't hesitate for even a single second. The air inside is thick with suffocating black smoke and the roar of the fire. Mu channels his power. Intense, icy internal energy begins to swirl and condense in his open palms. Watch closely here, this is where we see his power in action. Freezing energy explodes from his hands, clashing with the raging flames. In an instant, the wildfire is frozen solid and extinguished by his incredible frost power. As the smoke clears, Mu spots a woman lying unconscious on the charred floor. He checks her neck for a pulse. Looks like she is still breathing. Lucky break for her. He throws her over his shoulder to escape, but a massive burning beam snaps and falls right toward them. Mu's icy aura bursts outward like a shield, protecting them both instantly. The beam shatters on impact. Seconds later, the entire collapsing room is sealed under a thick, glowing layer of frost. Jerome is completely stunned. Is this monster-level ice magic? Like 8th or maybe even 9th ring? Ash finally lets out a breath of relief once she sees Mu walk out totally unharmed. Mu steps through the cold mist with the lady on his shoulder. Her vision is still a blurry mess. Inside her dream, a soldier reports some grave news. Your Highness, there are signs of a rebellion. She screams at the traitors in her sleep, but the faces in her dream start to fade and blur away. Now, pay attention, because the woman finally wakes up, completely lost and confused about where she is right now. Seeing a group of strangers outside her door only makes her more suspicious. She demands to know where she is. Luya greets her gently. You're finally awake. Are you feeling okay or in any pain? The woman looks down on them with natural arrogance. Tell me, where am I? Luya explains she's with the Corellian merchant group. Recognition finally dawns on the woman's face. She recognizes them from the leather trade. How can anyone living in the Gaia kingdom not know who she is? Luya explains they are from the Gret kingdom. Not knowing the local celebrities is pretty normal for them. The woman asks who saved her life. Luya points straight to Mu, the Duke of Blizzard himself. She gives Mu a long, judging look. So you're the one. For that, you have my gratitude. She introduces herself as Schiller Mac. The moment she says it, the room goes dead silent. Everyone is in total shock. Luya turns and starts screaming at Jack. You idiot! He was supposed to memorize the Gaia royal family. Schiller is the second princess of this entire kingdom. At only 25, she is already a sword saint and commander of the Night Orders. Talk about an elite resume. She is a military powerhouse. Luya is so terrified she bows immediately to beg for forgiveness. Your Highness, please forgive us. Ash is also breaking into a cold sweat nearby. She is traveling in secret and just bumped into a foreign princess. If her true identity gets out, it's game over. Schiller orders Mu to join her at the palace as a reward for his help once he finishes his meal. Mu sees how stressed Ash is. He turns the princess down without showing any respect at all. Sorry, no time. I need to get back home soon. Schiller's face darkens instantly as she is not used to being rejected. Luya feels like she might die right here. Refusing a princess on her own home turf is absolutely insane. Stick with me to see if they survive this royal mess. Alright, you and I are watching our boss get nervous around a princess for the first time. But she immediately shifts the conversation. Your Highness, with power like yours, how did you get caught in a fire? The second it is mentioned, Schiller's eyes turn icy, and the face of her rival, Duke Dayton, flashes through her mind. That old fox actually sent assassins. Schiller sneers with pure contempt. Nothing but sewer rats playing dirty games in the dark. Burning the place was just a pathetic attempt to hide the body. She pulls back her killing intent and looks at Mu. Regardless, you saved my life. Name your price. What do you want from me? Suddenly, her stomach lets out a loud, embarrassing growl. Mu stares her down before she can start writing blank checks. Fill your stomach first. Not caring if he offends her. Mu points straight at the table. You've been starving since last night, right? Sit down and eat. Schiller is still fuming, but royal pride is no match for a starving stomach. She sits down to eat, but then spots a long sword leaning against the wall. She asks who it belongs to, and Mu gives a flat answer. Mine. Schiller drops her fork and knife instantly. A swordsman, huh? As the knight commander, I'd very much like to see what you can really do. Now, you and I know Mu doesn't hold back. He looks at her coldly and says, No, I don't fight weaklings. Schiller snaps. This man actually called her weak? He clearly has no respect for a sword saint. Because she is a woman, she has dealt with plenty of men refusing to duel her before. But Schiller has a simple fix for men like that. She stands up, eyes burning with pure disdain. Duke Blizzard, are you just afraid of losing? Mu's gaze darkens in an instant. He picks up his sword and stands. Fine, come outside. He glances back and tells her he will teach her a few things. Outside the manor, Schiller draws her blade and stands there radiating pressure. Jerome stands off to the side, looking completely worried. Boss, she is a princess. Please go easy on her. But Schiller is done waiting. Done with your final words, Duke? I've seen plenty of arrogant men like you. Every one of them became a pathetic loser under my blade. I am looking forward to seeing your face twist in agony in just a minute. Sword in hand, Schiller lunges forward in a heartbeat. Pay attention, because the sword light here is insane. A razor-sharp aura shoots right from Mu's eyes. The air explodes with the roar of a shattered sound barrier as she rushes him. Mu just raises his blade and shifts, effortlessly dissolving her ferocious strike. Schiller steadies herself, completely shocked inside. He actually blocked her thrust. He was not bluffing. She uses her blade's momentum to keep moving. She flashes behind Mu in a blink. Without even turning his head, he swings backward and avoids it again. Her momentum never breaks. Schiller reverses her grip and thrusts again. Mu casually blocks with a swing of his sword and steps back. In a blink, Schiller unleashes dozens of sword arcs in rapid succession. But this man uses only tiny movements to shut down every single one of her techniques. A chill runs through her. His power is far more terrifying than she ever imagined. Schiller follows her blade and flashes right in front of Mu's face again. Her sword whips wildly, forcing Mu into the air. Schiller leaps up immediately, giving him no room to breathe. In the next second, she teleports right into position directly in front of him. Mid-air, Schiller twists and delivers a brutal sidekick straight into Mu's sword. The monstrous force blasts Mu a full 100 meters away. He lands and slowly straightens his body. This woman's combos are savage, like a mad tiger. She's definitely skilled, but if he keeps dodging, the whole manor will be demolished. Mu stops defending and charges straight at Schiller. Suyu's sword bursts with waves of bone-chilling light. Spotting an opening, Schiller throws another back kick. Mu seals it off cleanly. Before she can react, his left fist slams hard into her lower abdomen. The terrifying impact makes Schiller double over in pain instantly. And trust me, this is where it ends. Mu's hand clamps around her throat, and he slams her flat to the ground with zero effort. All right, stick with me because we are jumping right into the moment a princess realizes she messed with the wrong guy. You lost. Mu's voice is cold, totally emotionless. Jerome rushes in, desperately trying to de-escalate the situation. He suggests calling it a draw since they are both masters, but Schiller's face is absolutely fuming with rage right now. She demands a rematch or threatens a formal protest against the Kingdom of Drake, leaving her attendants from Gaia terrified. They beg her to calm down, but Mu just turns and gives her the coldest look imaginable. He tells her admitting defeat is basic warrior code. Despite being a princess, she is acting like a giant, entitled baby. Schiller struggles to her feet, literally grinding her teeth as she lets her anger take total control. She screams that he is talking nonsense and charges again. But with a sharp command to shut up, a sword shadow flashes. In an instant, the tip of Mu's blade is resting perfectly between her eyes. She did not even see it coming. Now pay attention to this gap in power, because it is about to break her spirit completely. The difference in their strength is like a bottomless chasm. Her legs literally give out from the sheer pressure. Falling to her knees, she is in despair because she could not even track his move. Mu asks if this is how her country treats saviors. He tells her point blank that if she were not royalty, she would be a corpse. But Schiller is too stunned to listen. Her mind is spinning. How could she lose? Was her entire life of pride and training just a massive lie? Since she was a kid, she has dominated every tournament. She has never tasted the bitter flavor of defeat until today. Her mother's high expectations made her believe she was truly the pride of Gaia, a peerless warrior. But now, her title of Sword Saint has been shattered by a total nobody. She wonders what kind of monster he really is. Suddenly, Ash runs out and hides behind Mu. He sheathes his blade and tells her they are heading back to Corellian tomorrow. He suggests taking a stroll through the city first, then grabs Ash's hand and they simply walk away together. Before he is gone, he tells Jerome to buy better gear. That last sword was basically scrap iron and it is finished. You and I both know where this is going. Schiller's obsession is shifting from hate to something else entirely. Jerome plays it safe, saying he cannot confirm if they are married, but hints that the lady is someone of extremely high status. Schiller realizes he might be single and immediately orders her carriage. She needs to get back to the palace right now. Inside the carriage, her thoughts are a total mess. She has never met someone so absurdly, overwhelmingly powerful before. For the first time since becoming a sword saint, she has faced an opponent who feels like a natural disaster. Staring out the window, she murmurs Duke Blizzard's name, wondering if things would be different if they had met sooner. Schiller finally returns to the royal palace, but her homecoming is far from a peaceful one. Inside the royal family, the brutal struggle for power never stops for even a single second. She suspects the fire that almost killed her was her sister's doing, the one who hides daggers behind a sweet smile. Soon, the birthday celebration for King Mova of Drake is coming up, and everyone is preparing. Schiller ignores her sister's mocking and requests permission to represent Gaia at the banquet with a perfectly blank expression. Deep down, she is hiding a secret plan that is absolutely insane, one that only she knows about. Mew has no idea what is brewing. He has already brought Ash back to White Ice Castle. Meanwhile, Duke is flexing his power in Drake. He is protecting his crippled son, Justin, after Mew ruined him. He orders his man, Ross, to start sabotaging every single business the Corellian merchant group owns. At the same time, Ash finishes her trip and heads back to her own place at the palace. Mew gives her a mana stone to stay in touch as dark currents start surging beneath the surface of Drake. He knows time is running out. He needs to build his own army and do it fast. The elite assassins he defeated earlier are currently being held in a secret dungeon, waiting for their fate. His plan is to flip them and use their own dark methods against his enemies, despite their average combat skills. However, Mew has already spotted 2 among them who actually show some real, raw potential. If he can merge these killers with the Wyvern Riders, he will have a force that dominates everything in its path. He is going to use the king's birthday banquet as his grand entrance into the political power center of Drake. Captain Highway follows orders and brings the prisoners to the training grounds for the final evaluation. And that is where we leave it, with Mew giving them a choice between total loyalty or a quick death. Stick with me, you and I are about to watch a weakling get pushed to his absolute limit. Mew pointed at the weapons on the ground. I have prepared some hellish training. Pick them up. The rules are simple. Take down every Blizzard Knight on the perimeter. The assassins immediately geared up and braced themselves for the coming battle. Deep in the forest, 3 assassins stayed alert. Suddenly, a Blizzard Knight struck from their blind spot. One assassin raised his shield and blocked the fierce strike head-on. In the next second, 2 powerful hands slammed down onto the knight's heavy shoulders. In an instant, the knight was wrestled into the snow by the other 2 assassins. One moved like lightning, ripping the metal armor right off the knight's body. The assassins shouted in excitement, "We got one. We won't go hungry tonight." High in the trees, Mew silently watched the survival drill. This real combat exercise had already lasted 3 full weeks. The rules were simple and brutal. Everyone wore a medal. If yours was taken, you were dead. Whichever side lost all its medals first would face a harsh punishment. That extreme pressure sent both sides' combat abilities skyrocketing at a crazy rate. Now, pay attention here. This is where things take a serious turn. A blinding red light flared up deep in the forest. It was the tracking mark Jerome placed earlier. If anyone tried to escape, the mark would alarm. A young assassin named Miller was sprinting through the snow when a cold voice sounded above his head. "This is the 10th time you have tried to run, Miller." Miller looked up at a thick branch overhead. Mew was looking down at him. "I warned you. If you ran again, you would die." Miller took a fighting stance. "Enough crap. I am not wasting my time playing this stupid little game with you." The moment the words left his mouth, a figure flashed from behind and struck him down with a chop. It was Beck, the former leader of the Corps. Beck dropped to one knee and pinned Miller down tightly. "My lord, please show mercy. Spare him one last time." Standing on the branch, Mew looked at Beck coldly. "Give me a reason. What is so urgent that this fool would throw away his life to keep running?" Beck's expression darkened. "My lord, Miller is not like the rest of us mercenaries who only kill for money. His family was slaughtered years ago, and we just heard the man responsible will be at the king's banquet next month." The scene shifted back to a private room inside White Ice Castle. Miller slowly woke up from unconsciousness. Mew stood by the window without even turning around. At the king's banquet, there will be hundreds of elite knights and high-level mages guarding the area. "Do you really think you could take him out alone?" Miller froze. It was Beck. "He told you everything." Miller clenched his fists, madness burning in his eyes. "I live for revenge. If I kill him, my life doesn't matter." Mew turned around and looked down at him. "Let me tell you this clearly. With your current strength, you won't even get close. You would just be throwing your life away for nothing. I know what you are thinking here is the moment everything changes. I am attending as a duke. Let's make a deal. I will help you eliminate him. In exchange, your life belongs to me from now on." Miller stared in disbelief. "Why choose me? You have plenty of subordinates who are way stronger than I am." Beck said that among people in their 20s, you are the only one who became a top-tier assassin. "It is your future worth that I value." Mew extended his hand to Miller. "I am building an assassination unit, and I need you. Are you in?" The agony of his family's massacre surged back, and the fire of vengeance burned in his eyes. In the very next second, the top assassin dropped to his knees before Mew without any hesitation. "As long as I get my revenge, I will do anything." Mew was satisfied. "Good, I am leaving soon. Be ready." Just then, Savina pushed the door open. She looked at Mew with pure excitement written all over her face. "Boss, the ice cream is ready. Want to try it?" But the moment Miller saw Savina, he froze. He pressed a hand against his pounding chest, utterly shaken. Who on earth is this woman? The scene shifted to the conference hall. Mew was going through reports when Jack burst through the door. His face was full of urgency. "Boss, I can't take it anymore. Those bastards have blocked every single road. Stick with me to find out why." Mew looked at him lazily. "Speak clearly." So, you and I are jumping into a mess. Viscount Ross has been sabotaging the caravans for days, and now he's sealed off every major route. Mu raised an eyebrow, suggesting they just go around or fly the goods over, but Jerome immediately shook his head. Wyverns have limited carrying capacity, so large cargo has to move by land, and Tot City is the only possible route to the capital. With the king's birthday coming, blocking the road is a clear move to keep you from attending the royal banquet. Mu almost laughed. He'd never even met this Viscount, so what exactly was the man's problem? Jerome explained that Ross serves Duke Justin, the man Mu recently crippled, and that old fox wants blood. This was pure retaliation, but Mu just let out a cold, sharp smile. If he's making the first move, I'll just chop his hand off, leaving Jerome absolutely paralyzed with shock. Boss, you aren't actually starting a territorial war, are you? That was a legal, private war between nobles. Once it started, not even the king could interfere, though the rules were incredibly strict. The king had to be notified first, and a formal declaration needed to reach the opponent before any fighting. Now pay attention, because here is the crazy part. If you crush the enemy in a lightning strike before the king gets the report, you can just file the paperwork afterward and walk away clean. Mu simply stroked his chin, deep in thought. This was basically a live combat drill delivered right to his doorstep, and it was the perfect way to test those newly trained troops. High weight. Leave a skeleton crew to guard the territory, but everyone else needs to get ready to move. Marcus, put the assassination squad on standby and send Miller into Tot City alone for some scouting. Jack, bring out the entire Wyvern Rider Corps, but Jack looked uneasy. They only had 20 riders ready. Is 20 too few? Mu's gaze turned icy, demanding to know what they'd been doing with those dragons for months. Are you doubting my orders, or just doubting the strength of your own air force? The scolding fired Jack up, and he snapped to attention. Sure, they were few, but their wyverns were monsters. Jerome was still desperately trying to stop him, arguing that gambling the lives of their people was just reckless. Ross was still holding over 6,000 civilians hostage, which changed the stakes entirely. If they forced an assault, the hostages would die, especially since the garrison outnumbered them 10-1. Okay, I know what you are thinking, but Mu is confident he plans to end this entire war in 48 hours before the enemy can even react. He walked right past Jerome, simply stating, "You are my strategist. Stop looking like a coward in front of the soldiers." Then he pushed the doors open toward the grounds. Are you ready? He asked, eyeing the army radiating killing intent across the field. He sent the declaration out immediately, but Viscount Ross didn't panic at the sudden news of an incoming war. Instead, he held his ground, cruelly tying 6,000 civilians to the city walls as human shields. Ross was still feeling smug about his defense when a massive shadow suddenly swept past his window. Boom! A frost wyvern smashed straight through the massive floor-to-ceiling window. Standing on its back, Mu descended like a demon god as a streak of cold light shot past Ross and pinned into the wall. His voice was icy. That was the declaration, and he'd be back for payment in 2 hours. Tot City's walls were packed with troops while the civilians cried in terror, and Ross stood high above, taunting Duke Blizzard. He dared him to step over the corpses of his own people just to get inside. Outside the city, the Blizzard Knights were already in formation, and Mu gave the order to attack. Ross waited to enjoy the show, but what happened next almost made his eyes pop out. The sky was swallowed by frost wyverns, each carrying a multi-ton boulder in its claws as they dove down from the clouds. Boulders rained down like a storm, collapsing defenses instantly while smoke and debris exploded into the air. The city's soldiers had never seen anything like it, and their lines broke on the spot. Some soldiers were so dazed by the bombardment that they were knocked straight off the high walls. Just as falling debris was about to crush the civilians, Jerome made his move, raising a massive magic barrier to block all the rubble. The horn sounded, and Marcus led the berserkers into battle, charging forward like living siege engines. Their massive axes swung in a spray of blood, proving to be completely unstoppable and brutal. And that is where we leave it. You and I just watched the northern barbarians turn into absolute monsters on the battlefield. Alright, you and I are about to watch how one wyvern roar breaks the last defenders. Mu hovered in the sky, surveying the battlefield, ready to finish off anyone left standing. He dropped right in front of a squad of elite knights. They jolted in shock. When did he get here? Their leader yelled for an attack, but Mu didn't even bother drawing his sword. He just raised a single finger. Icy energy pierced through their armor from a distance. Mu flashed behind them like a ghost. Bang! The force detonated inside their bodies all at once. The entire squad was wiped out instantly. Standing on the wall, Mu looked into the distance. The field is clear. Only the trash remains. Ross was alone, surrounded by terrified survivors. Losing his mind, Ross started kicking his own soldiers. You useless trash. He ordered them to fight, hoping Duke's reinforcements would save him in time. But treating his own men like garbage was the quickest way to get himself abandoned. One soldier finally snapped and punched Ross right in the face before running away. The soldiers scattered. Ross tried to get up, but a deadly chill ran down his spine. A massive dragon eye was locked onto him. Mu stood calmly right beside the beast's head. He walked toward Ross slowly. "So, Count Ross? It looks like things aren't going well for you." Ross went from arrogant to begging in seconds. "Duke Blizzard, I was wrong. I surrender." He claimed the Duke forced him into this. Just then, Jack arrived with a report. "Boss, every scout who tried to carry the news to Duke has been intercepted." Ross turned pale as death. His final card was gone. Mu looked at him coldly. "You used my people as shields. That means you die today." Mu raised his hand and fired a lethal blast. "Wait, pay attention here." Jerome actually stepped in with a magic barrier to stop the attack and save the Count. Jerome was the one who had blocked Mu's strike. Standing in between them, gritting his teeth, Jerome explained that under strict imperial law, only the king can sentence a noble to death. Ross got his swagger back instantly. "You hear that, you ignorant country bumpkin?" A figure emerged from the woods, and Ross started laughing like a maniac. "Idiot. Did you really think I only sent one messenger? Starting a war without reporting it to the crown first is high treason. Bulmer is allegedly at the capital filing treason charges." Ross thought he had finally won. Mu's face went serious, then he just started laughing. Ross looked at him like he was insane. "You're about to die and you're laughing?" Mu ignored him and looked at the approaching Bulmer. "Okay, you and I need to see this reveal." The man called Bulmer reached up and started tearing at his face. The human skin mask came off. It wasn't Bulmer, it was Miller, the elite assassin. Killing intent exploded from Mu's eyes. Ross was crushed. His last hope was gone. Ross was overcome with terror and tried to run, but Mu stomped the ground, sending freezing energy across the earth. Crack. Ross's legs were frozen solid. Mu clenched his fist, compressing his inner power. Ross was trapped like a bug on a board, watching that fist grow larger and larger. Boom. A terrifying punch loaded with force smashed directly into Ross's face. The savage impact sent Ross flying 100 meters. He was dead before he hit the ground. Silence fell across the field as everyone stared blankly at the broken corpse. Mu shook the blood off his hand and turned to his army. Seeing the fire and excitement on their faces, he slowly revealed a dominating smile. "This battle belongs to Corellian." The territorial war ended in a total victory. Not long after, the king's grand birthday banquet arrived right on schedule. The moment Mu stepped into the hall, he ran into Princess Schiller. Schiller was a bit too warm, but Mu just gave her a polite nod. Princess Daphlin and Count Enos stood out, causing a massive stir among the noble circle. "Trust me, the name Enos is about to change everything. You and I are looking at a living legend, the top-tier sword saint from the intel reports." As Mu looks at him, a primal sense of danger rises in his heart. Suddenly, the king makes his grand entrance, flanked by the two beautiful princesses. Schiller is absolutely floored. It turns out the woman trailing Mu this whole time is a literal princess of Drake. Ash notices them too. One sweep of the crowd is all she needs to spot Mu standing right next to Schiller. Seeing how close they are, jealousy flares up in her chest. What is this woman doing here? Wasn't Gaia supposed to send their eldest princess? The banquet officially kicks off as nobles from across the land step up to offer the king their birthday wishes. King Mova gives a fired-up speech, announcing the peak of the celebration. Now for the part everyone is waiting for, the gifts. Duke doesn't waste a second, stepping forward first with a massive offering. It is a defensive ring capable of negating any offensive spell below the 4th circle. Beaming with pride, the Duke says he hopes this ring will protect the king forever. The second it appears, the entire hall gasps in absolute shock. An artifact with high-level magic like that is a priceless treasure that gold simply cannot buy. The king looks genuinely impressed. "Thank you, Duke. This gift is almost too valuable to accept." After that showstopper, every other noble's gift looks completely boring and dull by comparison. Since Mu's status is special, he is arranged to appear last for the grand finale. When his turn finally comes, he brings in bundles of frost ogre hides he hunted himself. Nearby, Duke sneers with total contempt. "Beast hides for a king? What a backwater peasant with zero class." But despite the mocking stares, Mu remains perfectly cool. "Your Majesty, just hides alone would indeed be a bit thin as a gift. I have actually prepared something else for you as well. Now, here is where things get interesting." A servant opens the chest, revealing 3 eggs that look utterly and completely ordinary. Mu introduces them calmly. "These are monster eggs." Duke explodes instantly. "Outrageous! You dare bring some random wild eggs before the king? Are you insulting the crown?" He immediately orders the guards to drag this madman out. "Everyone, stop." The king's furious shout freezes the hall, his face darkening with anger. "Baron Blizzard, you owe me a proper explanation right now." Surrounded by doubt, Mu answers calmly. "Your Majesty, these are no ordinary eggs. These are Northern Frost Wyvern eggs." The second he says that, the king and the Duke freeze in shock. Their eyes nearly pop out of their heads. Northern frost wyverns are aerial overlords twice the size of normal ones. They are violently savage. Forget even touching their eggs. Even approaching their nests is practically a death sentence. If these beasts could be tamed, the kingdom's air power would reach an earth-shattering new level. Staring at the 3 eggs, the king gulps. He looks at Mu with total disbelief. Baron, I understand the value here, but you know the truth as well as I do. Taming a frost wyvern is 10 times harder than stealing the egg itself. Mu nods, his tone cooler than ever. Your Majesty is right. Raising them is tough. Then, he puts 2 fingers to his lips and lets out a piercing whistle. Mu shouts loudly. You and I are about to see something wild. A massive frost wyvern slams into view outside the window, letting out a deafening, earth-shattering roar. Mu continues. I raised her from a hatchling. The method is simple, and I will teach it to you for free. When a hatchling breaks out of its shell, it will imprint on the first face it sees. If that face is yours, it serves you with total loyalty. The other 2 are gifts for the beautiful princesses. They will eventually become the princess's ultimate royal guards. The king is literally shaking with excitement. Mu did not just bring one for him, but gifts for his daughters too. That level of thoughtfulness is perfect. The king bursts out laughing. Baron Blizzard, this is truly the greatest gift I have ever received in my life. Thank you. Nearby, Ash finally relaxes and lets out a relieved smile. No wonder he messaged her about a huge surprise a few days ago. But just as Mu is about to become the king's new favorite, Duke suddenly strikes back. Your Majesty, I have an urgent matter to report right now. 2 days ago, Baron Blizzard brazenly sent troops to attack Vikel Ross. In other words, he started a territorial war without reporting it first. And that is where you and I leave it. Mu is being condemned on the spot. Wild, right? This lawless brute ignores royal authority and builds military power for himself. Your Majesty, he must be punished immediately. The hall goes dead silent, and trust me, you and I can feel the tension as the king starts thinking. If these accusations are true, then the main character is facing a massive, life-threatening problem. Right as the room freezes up, Mu suddenly turns to the king and throws a question back at him. Your Majesty, slave trading is illegal here in the Kingdom of Drake, right? He pulls out a scroll and tosses it forward. This is the ledger for Vikel Ross's slave business. He kidnapped my people and sold them on the black market like animals. Mu's eyes turn cold as his voice thunders through the hall. Now watch this. Tell me, what lord would just sit there while his own people are being sold as slaves? Cold sweat pours down the Duke's back. Internally, he is cursing his idiot subordinate for getting caught. That moron actually ran a slave business for some dirty cash and left proof behind. Seeing the opening, Ash steps in right away to deliver a perfect verbal follow-up. According to royal law, when a lord deals with a criminal who has committed such a massive crime, they have every right to skip the paperwork and immediately launch a justified territorial war. She blinks playfully at the king, asking her father if she is remembering the law correctly. The king clears his throat behind his hand and seizes the chance at once. Since the war was fought to rescue civilians, it was fully justified. The king makes his ruling right then. Tot City will now be officially incorporated into Corellian territory, effective immediately. Puke Tartan immediately adds even more fuel to the fire. Your Majesty, since Baron Blizzard expanded his lands, shouldn't his title be raised too? The king laughs, knowing exactly where this is going. Well said. Baron Blizzard, step forward. Mu walks up and drops down to one knee. The king personally drapes the ogre hide over his shoulders. From now on, you are Viscount Blizzard. A double celebration today. Drink and rejoice. The hall erupts with emotion, but the Duke just stands there with a dark expression. Grinding his teeth, he glares at Mu with pure venom. He vows to one day drag him off that seat and smash him into the dirt. With that, he storms off in a dramatic sweep of his sleeve. But pay attention here in the shadows. A mysterious man has been silently watching this whole thing unfold. After the banquet, Mu steps out into the corridor to let the night air cool him down. Tonight feels pretty damn good. His rank is up, his land is bigger, and he has finally taken another step closer to Ash. Suddenly, the door opens. The man who steps out is none other than Count Enos from the Kingdom of Hassan. Enos gets right to the point. He says, I finally found you, Shu. Mu's heart misses a beat. The man had just spoken flawless Central Plains Chinese. Enos slams the door shut behind him, sealing off every single escape route completely. Mu, you slaughtered my Hashan sect. I've been searching a long time to finally settle this blood debt. Pure murderous intent explodes in Enos's eyes as he slowly draws the sword from his waist. Suddenly, a rich plum blossom fragrance fills the corridor. The second Mu catches that familiar scent, every nerve in his body tightens. There is no mistake. This has to be the final disciple that Master Jingfun of the Hashan sect mentioned before his death. The man known as the strongest rising genius in the Central Plains martial world. Lai Jianqing points his sword straight at Mu and starts advancing toward him, step by step. The corridor overflows with killing intent. This is easily the hardest fight Mu has faced since arriving in this world. Neither of them waste any more words. They go on the attack immediately. Sword shadows collide in a storm of killing blows, with both men aiming for the heart. Enos slashes, sending a blood-red sword aura through the air that forces Mu back. Then, a horrifying surge of inner force erupts from his palm. With a flash of light, he shoots forward like he just teleported straight in front of Mu. Bang! Enos slams out a palm strike that blasts Mu more than 10 meters away. That power behind it is absolutely monstrous. Mu feels his energy churning violently and nearly loses his footing. Enos gives him zero room to breathe. Sticking close, he follows up with another blood-red sword aura crashing straight down at Mu's head. Mu has to push his movement technique to the limit, rising up sharply to dodge the fatal blow. After that brief exchange, the two finally pull apart and stand at opposite ends of the hallway. Locked in a tense standoff, Mu is shaken. Trust me, you and I are about to see if he survives this monster. Stick with me, you're about to see the Central Plains' strongest genius live up to the hype. Killer intent burned in Enos's eyes. Shmoo, your good days are over. I've been hunting you for 5 years, ever since that shipwreck. I was just waiting for the perfect strike when a flash of light fell from the sky and swallowed everything. When I finally woke up, I was stuck in this hellhole. His inner energy, Ido Sara, surged out like a storm. But I have not forgotten that debt of blood for even one single day. The pressure was so terrifying it made even Mu break out in sweat. The atmosphere shifted instantly as an overwhelming sword intent erupted from Enos's blade. Today, your life pays for every single soul we lost at Hashan. Pay attention here that sword intent is pushing Mu to his absolute limit. This attack is on a whole different level. A direct hit could be fatal. But right as they were about to clash, the corridor doors were suddenly thrown wide open. Both men snapped their heads toward the noise. Stepping into the room was none other than Princess Schiller. Viscount Blizzard, I have been looking for you. What is going on between you two? Mu forced a faint smile and claimed they were just old friends catching up from back home. Enos swept her with a cold glance and recognized her immediately. Schiller, the second princess of Gaia. In an instant, Enos's entire plan shifted. Killing Shmoo in front of foreign royalty would cause a massive international disaster he couldn't afford. It looked like this vendetta would have to wait for another day. Enos withdrew his killing intent and told them to enjoy their chat before taking his leave. With that, he turned and headed for the door without another wasted motion. But just as he was leaving, Mu heard Enos's voice whispering directly into his ear. Listen, Shrem. Mu's eyes narrowed. The bastard was using the lost art of voice transmission. Enos's words sounded like a cold, venomous hiss. Since you took everything from me, I will destroy everything you love. Your power, your allies, your entire world, it is all going down. Then, his dark gaze shifted toward Ash, who was standing further down the hall. And the first one I will start with is that Drake princess who can't stop looking at you. Hearing that, Mu's rage exploded. You absolute animal. This is between us, so leave Ash out of it. Enos vanished through the door with one final, mocking taunt. That depends on you. Watch your back for now, Shmoo. Now, you and I both know Mu isn't easily rattled, but that naked death threat actually made him feel a sudden surge of real panic for the first time. Schiller mentioned they seemed to be having a deep talk, but Mu had zero patience left. I have urgent business to handle. I am leaving. As he tried to walk past, Schiller suddenly grabbed onto his sleeve. Mu turned back, clearly annoyed. What now? Schiller hesitated, acting surprisingly shy for someone usually so bold. She claimed it wasn't a big deal, but then her princess pride quickly took over again. I came to find you myself and you just turn your back and walk away? Do you have any manners at all? Mu just looked at her coldly. Princess, shouldn't you be busy? The hall is packed with nobles waiting for a chance to speak with you. Why are you following me around? Those words stung. To think, she was actually being an annoyance to him. Schiller bit her lip. Most men would do anything just to hear her voice. Yet he treated her like nothing. Why did he ignore her like she didn't even exist? She looked down, her voice suddenly losing its edge. Do not misunderstand. I only came here to congratulate you on your new rank as a Viscount. Seeing her look so hurt, Mu realized he had gone too far. Sorry, I was a bit too harsh, but I really do have something urgent to handle. Please excuse me. Mu opened the door and added a quick thanks for the congratulations. The door shut behind him, leaving Schiller standing alone in the corridor. Through the glass, she stared inside at him in total silence. What she saw was Mu rushing straight to Ash's side and staying right there, refusing to leave even half a step of distance between them. Seeing how protective and anxious Mu was for Ash made a painful, bitter ache swell in Schiller's chest. If I had met him first, would he have looked at me that way too? But a war goddess was still a war goddess. In the next second, Schiller forcibly crushed those romantic thoughts. This was definitely not the time to get lost in her own feelings. Her eyes turned cold again as she stared out into the distance. And that's where we leave it, trust me. You and I need to see if she survives her own sister's deadly assassins.